Welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. Rollergator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week? Now, I will have to answer for Alex and say that it's at least partially dumb. I don't know if it's sufficiently dumb, but Alex, I've sent you the co-host request about 20 times now, and I don't see you accepting, which means you're probably having difficulties even seeing on your app that I have sent you this request. I don't know if it's similar to the problem that you had last week getting an invite, and I don't know if you can currently hear me in the audience as you are, but I have been sending you that invite. So hopefully, if we give you a couple minutes, uh, you'll be able to get the invite and come back in. But I'm going to get started first, give Alex a couple moments to join, get started first on some of the, less important yet still dumb news of the week.
A great escape caught on camera. A 3-year-old in Idaho took matters into his own hands to visit his grandmother after his mother told him he could not see her. After the conversation, the boy's mother assumed he went to play with his siblings, but home security footage shows the toddler sneaking out of the back door of his home and running half a mile barefoot down the street to his grandma's house. The boy's mother said she was in shock, but relieved he made it there safely after receiving a call from grandma.
So over the river and through the woods to the grandma's house he went. Alex, have you ever had a 3-year-old escape your house and travel a half mile to grandma's house, somehow navigating the terrain quite expertly and making it in one piece?
Earlier this year, I thought my 4-year-old had left to go somewhere about half a mile away, at which point I grabbed my 7-year-old and we left our house and ran over there to find him, where we didn't find him. And after I had, spoken to several neighbors to be on the lookout, and another friend came over with his bike and whatever, I realized he was sleeping upstairs in a very weird place that I didn't find him in. So no, apparently.
Okay, all right. Well, had your 4-year-old done that sort of exploration and traversing of the terrain, I would say at 3 years old that at least that distance, a half a mile, is actually a pretty decent memory of geolocation, and might serve to advance them in certain categories of education since they seem to show such adeptness.
Apparently, there is a story whereby a young Elon Musk wanted to go and see his cousins. His mom said no, and he basically just walked off to go to his cousin's house. So,
All right,
I would invest. I would invest in that toddler. That's
all right, okay. So we need to ask them to put out an IPO on that toddler.
Yes.
All right,
By the way,
Nathan, it has been quite a while. Thank you for joining us as well.
Oh, yes, I was less busy now, I guess, or trying to be less
Ooh.
busy. So,
All right, excellent. Go ahead, Alex.
since we're calling this dumb week, I'm just noticing that I don't usually look at trending on Twitter, but this time it says today's news: Scott Alexander links AI progress to simulation theory odds, and I just feel it belongs.
I read that and I was like, actually,
I don't read Scott Alexander. I consider everything he writes to be an attempted attack on my brain.
You have become jaded
But-
over the
Well,
years.
he's sufficiently smart to write things that are, if you're not reading them carefully enough, and if you're not investigating his sources closely enough, they are in effect, extremely dishonest attempts to persuade you of things that aren't true. So I just avoid the. But apparently we're in a simulation, so hey,
Okay, well, whom do I make the request to try like resetting it, or like is it one seed value for the entire simulation, or do we periodically pause it and change the seed value? Do we have any restore states that we can go back to where I could say, hey, I don't like the way this evolved. Can we go back to this load point and redo it with a different seed value? Like,
I don't
So
think you get to do any of that, but I think
Well,
his
why
point on
not?
this one was that if we really are approaching like the singularity and all that, then perhaps the people who are running the simulation, that's the thing that they'd want to simulate to see, how it can go different ways and whatnot.
Okay, now
why?
as a
Mm,
technicality,
How does he know?
as a
I don't know.
technicality, since the simulation theory also involves usually nested simulations being part of the simulation theory, does it all count if your simulation has a simulation inside of it, or is that still just one simulation?
It's not even about two levels. The simulation theory argument um, basically boils down to if there's any simulation, there's infinite of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it works on every level. So
But you
what are we
still have to
even?
be you still have to be like an ordinal node inside of an infinite cardinality.
I just feel bad that we don't have any simulations of our own. Like we are not just we were a leaf node. We're like the bottom of simulations. You know what I mean? It's
All right.
terrible.
Okay. Well, inside of that simulation, some of the local police in some areas are going to interesting lengths to do some of their normal duty.
Some may call it a Bush League tactic, but a police department outside New York City is using an unusual technique to catch distracted drivers, with an officer dressing as a shrub and using a pair of binoculars. Other officers then pull the drivers over. Officials say they issued 74 citations to drivers allegedly distracted by their devices in a 6-hour period.
They're planting cops as literal plants. So that's a good simulation. Simulate a plant for a day, and just see if some people are speeding.
Literal cop with like a plant on his head.
It would be such a shame if someone happened to be walking their dog and their dog had to go to the bathroom right around that time in that location.
You remind me of this YouTube short I saw, which said, "This is a flock camera," and now on a completely unrelated matter, here's how to cut a what is it, a 4-inch aluminum tubing. Which was
Yes,
the
yes.
exact thickness of the.
Yes. Now, going through our speed run of early dumb news that is less significant that we don't need to delve into too much.
A bizarre accident on an Arkansas highway claimed a man's life. State police say the man was driving on the interstate when a portable toilet fell off of a pickup truck and went into his lane. His car slammed into the toilet and it killed him.
Not the most glamorous way to end your life, Alex. Not the most glamorous way. It's in the scheme of tragedies, that's one of the more tragic ways to die. Porta potty death.
I demand that I die in far more glamour than this.
Oh yeah. I demand
If
that
the
if
simulators are
this-
listening,
if the
this
AIs
as a
take
request.
over and do end humanity, I do demand that they do so in an extravagant fashion, and that it not be like this really stupid sort of death.
What about the guy from that band who drove into a hay bale that rolled across the road? Feels kind of similar.
I'm not familiar. Do you recall? I know you just said that band because you probably didn't remember the name right away, but do you have more details to expand the memory?
What genre?
Gosh. A British band. He was a British guy. ELO or something. Yeah, Electric Light Orchestra.
Okay, I wasn't familiar about the crash into a hay bale. Was that like during a U.S. tour?
Yeah, it was in
or something?
2010. The cellist died on the A831 in Devon. 600 kilogram hay bale from a tractor rolled across the road, and he drove into it.
Oh, all right. That's not good. It's I guess as far as respectable deaths, it's slightly above hitting the porta potty and dying.
Yeah, it does. It beats the porta potty. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
At the
Well,
same
we're gonna
time, we're
move-
all here talking about it, and I feel like there's all sorts of other deaths where it just would not be mentioned. So
This is
jokes
true.
on us,
This
I
is true.
guess.
But as we speed run through the opening dumb news stories that are don't require a lot of discussion, there happens to be the takeover by the coyotes in a construction complex.
The folks living here never imagined what would move in across the street. They say this abandoned building has turned into an animal shelter, and here's a little bit of what they have to put up with, especially at night. Not your typical neighbors.
We have like a zoo here.
Coyotes wandering the floors of this abandoned development in West Hollywood. This video shows a coyote with at least 3 small pups.
They roam around. There's a little one. They're kind of straggly.
At night, the neighbors say the howling is deafening.
I'm scared to go to my house. I open my garage. I'm afraid if one of them not going to come to my house.
Ava lives right across the street.
I complained, West Hollywood, and they told me they're going to talk to the owner. Who knows where is the owner?
The development has been sitting idle for at least 2 years.
This abandoned construction seems like a metaphor of sort of the limitations of what these developers are really capable of. And I myself am not that turned off by the fact that, some animals in need of a home would come in.
Neighbors say the coyotes also pose a danger for small pets.
I thought about calling animal control or 311 because it's not like we're going to do something to harm them, but they can be disruptive.
Definitely keep them on leash. We did get them, collars with little spikes. So especially in the evenings or in the mornings, we put them on.
So the coyotes have taken over the unfinished construction zone, which is actually not too bad of a use for unfinished construction. Maybe it'll give someone some fire to take over that construction site and finish the job already. Alex, sir?
Well, it happens. I don't know what to say.
All right. Hey, now, do you recall, Alex, that we've mentioned a couple times on here the old story of the McDonald's coffee that burned a woman and she sued them for millions of dollars because of the coffee burns, where she had placed the coffee in between her legs? And it was a classic example of how the public reaction and sort of the news propaganda was able to, convince a wide swath of people that it was an example of a frivolous lawsuit, that the lady who was suing McDonald's for the burns that she had endured with the coffee was a classic example of a frivolous lawsuit. But that as you look into the details of that lawsuit, it turns out that the circumstances were much different than the average person would expect, that the coffee itself was boiled to a level well beyond the average pot of coffee someone would have in their home, and that she actually suffered severe third-degree burns across her thighs and her mid-body. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I'm aware of the story.
All right. Well,
Gator, is there something you can do to push up your volume levels a little
push
bit?
up
Because
my volume
I can hear
levels.
Nathan quite well, but you are
How about
under
that?
my fan.
How are we doing there?
Better.
That better? I can do it a little bit more if you need. How are we doing there?
I mean, it's not really. I'm standing in for the crowd here. I'm assuming everybody else is having the same issue.
Okay, but
all right.
now how about now?
Oh, nice.
Okay. All right. If that's sufficient, then I'll keep it there. All right. Sorry about that, sir. I guess I'm just one of those. My account's known for being my account's known for being quiet and a little bit.
Yes.
So I try to live up to expectations.
As
all right.
Say.
Well, it appears that there might be another one of those such cases right around the corner.
She's like, get it off me, get it off. Katie Spence describes when her 13-year-old daughter was burned by a Nido, a wildly popular gel-filled fidget toy that's so in demand, store shelves are often empty. Nido is meant for both kids and adults, but when it gets hot, the material inside turns molten. Spence's daughter's experience was caught on camera.
I just left this in the car for like 5 hours and look, it burns. Like I feel like it's gonna pop. Look. It's the gumdrop that's like harder than the needle. Look, wait. Oh my God. How would you do that? Look, what? Oh yeah, it is.
Spence says it happened while they were in El Paso last Saturday after the Nido sat in the car for more than 4 hours. After the toy exploded,
she jumps out of the car and she's like screaming at the top of her lungs, like, please, Mama, get it off, get it off. There was like people all around. We were trying to like get it off, but they said, don't take it off because it'll rip her skin off. So then I rushed her to the nearest children's hospital.
According to Spence, the gel inside the toy caused third-degree burns on her daughter's arm and leg. The viral fidget toy is made by Massachusetts-based toy company Schilling. All Nido packaging includes the warning, caution, do not leave in car or direct sun, contents may become hot, do not heat, freeze, or microwave, may cause personal injury.
Those contents, if they're on the skin and you can't get it off the skin very quickly, which if it's a little bit sticky when it's warmed up, again, now you're in that danger zone.
John Femling with emergency medicine at UNMH says he doesn't recall any incidents at the hospital involving someone getting burned by the contents of a Nido, but says hot cars always pose a risk this time of year.
What it means is any sort of toy or anything else that gets to that temperature, if it's at 140 degrees, can cause a burn in seconds.
Nido has made headlines as the subject of a dangerous trend on social media that involves putting it in a microwave, which has also led to injuries. But Spence says this was an accident, and she wants other parents to know the risks.
Don't warm it up. Don't leave it in the sun. Don't leave it in a car.
Marilyn Upchurch, KRQE, News 13.
In fact, only play with it in Antarctica because apparently it'll give you third-degree burns. Third-degree burns, mind you, are extremely severe. They are no joke. And the level of degree that she was covered in that goo apparently required major skin grafting to be able to help her heal. That's some that is really hot magma-like stuff, man. I don't know if you've ever had a third-degree burn before, Alex, but it's not a fun time.
No, but also it said do not freeze. So I'm not sure the Antarctica situation is gonna be.
Don't leave it outside. Okay, all right. Where we have to find, I guess, the most temperate
yes.
Location temperate in order to have this toy. I guess I wonder what happens if you freeze it. Do you get frostbite if you then play with it? It just seems to magnify whatever the temperature is that's surrounding it, because right. In order you have to get really hot to give third-degree burns. Really hot. Like, we're not talking 100 degrees. We're not talking 150 degrees. You have to be upwards like 200 degrees really to cause the third-degree burn types.
Unfortunately, I don't speak Fahrenheit, so I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, well. Now, moving on to, again, the speed run of dumb news that doesn't require too much expansion to talk about here. This is from the New York Post, Alex. The online sorcerer suing TikTok witch after she labeled him a sexual predator. A man known as Dan the Sorcerer has taken issue with a rival TikTok witch who allegedly claimed him a disqualified MAGA and Trump-aligned witch and sexual predator, according to a new lawsuit. Melvin Daniel Spalding has sued Amber Lee Rose, known online as Ambrosia the Witch, alleging the social media cult creator defamed him and is damaging his reputation. Both have built large followings on TikTok and Instagram by sharing spells, occult practices, and spiritual beliefs. Rose has 160,000 TikTok followers where she shares witch tips and spells, including breakup spell and money spell that she says will draw in the funds. According to the lawsuit, Rose targeted MAGA witches in a January 21st, 2026 post, saying they were neither very pretty nor very bright. Days later, she allegedly escalated the attacks by implying Spalding was politically, socially, morally, and professionally unfit to be part of the spiritual and occult community. The lawsuit also alleges Rose falsely labeled Spalding as a sexual predator and white male occultist guilty of misconduct involving women and predatory behavior, publishing the claims to her followers, the Witch Talk community, the broader occult community, and current and prospective clients. Spalding claims the statements caused reputational damage, emotional distress, and lost income, and is seeking general, special, and economic damages. Rose has made a business of her online witch activity with an online shop called the Wild Arts Apothecary, where she sells emergent bath potion for $16 and vamp repellent oil for $34. The Vamp Repellent is a potent shielding blend designed to block psychic vampires, sever energy cords, and strengthen your energetic body, ensuring your energy remains yours, and contains mugwort, rosemary, and angelica root, the website says. When asked for comments, Rose told the California Post, "I have no idea who this Sorcerer Dan person is. I have never made any content about this person." Now, Alex, I as part of the rationalist community, or former part of the rationalist community, I'm assuming that you have not necessarily dabbled in the occultist arts, correct? That the goofballs that you spent time with were of a different breed than the occultists.
You'd be surprised, but let's put this one aside. So I'm kind of baffled by this one because those breakup spells presumably do not involve the consent of the people you're breaking up. Is that fair to say?
Well, you are allowed to have breakups asymmetrically, I believe. I think that is permitted. The no fault divorce.
Any spells? You just kind of do them. Presumably.
I guess
I think
that is.
Spell, you cast on others that you want to break up.
There was an episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza attempted to break up with someone and she just said no. And he was very confused as to what he was supposed to do after that. So it might be some people need the spell in order to convince the person that they're actually broken up with. I'm not 100% sure. Now, so we have
So
two.
is the lawsuit because basically she cast a MAGA witch hex on him, or?
According to him, she labeled him a sexual predator, which would be defamatory, I guess, unless he is a sexual predator, and then truth is an absolute defense against defamation in court. So, that would be a part of it. Now, my question is, if he's a sorcerer, why he just doesn't battle this out on another plane of existence and use some of his sorcery to combat this problem? But
well, perhaps courts are that other plane of existence.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm learning a lot every day, as we all know. Now we got two other stories here before we start to get into some important stuff here. This one is somewhat of a serious story, but there's an aspect of this story that I can't take seriously, and so about 9 times throughout this piece, I laugh.
Well, a major win for police tonight, crippling Sydney's notorious coconut cartel in a string of raids. The violent gang, infamous for its underworld war with the Alameddine crime network, now all but dismantled. Among the arrests, the alleged onshore leader of the group and a prison officer accused of helping them find their targets.
They waged war across Western Sydney. The so-called coconut cartel,
an organised crime network that has been responsible for much of the gang violence in Sydney over the past 18 months.
Taken down after a series of raids at Quakers Hill,
Police search warrant, open the door!
Edenza Park, Tallawong and Blacktown.
Police search warrant, open the door!
For a long time, we've been playing catch up. For the first time, we think we're on par.
Organised crime officers nabbing the accused head of the cartel's Australian arm after allegedly linking him to 200 kilograms of the drug ice stashed inside an Emu Plains warehouse. The Coconut Cartel are former members of the Mount Druitt street gang KVT, once muscle for the Alameddines, now mortal enemies. At the top of the cartel food chain was Lorenzo Lamalu, who was assassinated in Vietnam last week, leaving wanted fugitive Anthony Pele as the most senior figure of the gang. Pele is based in Southeast Asia, sending orders to alleged onshore leader Henry Cooper, who police nabbed last month in relation to the drugs found at Emu Plains. Plains. Yesterday, police arrested 6 alleged middlemen who are accused of distributing drugs for the Coconut Cartel. This month, detectives also arrested up to a dozen foot soldiers, mostly contract criminals, including teenage boys and women. One of the most alarming arrests, a corrective service officer accused of supplying the photos and addresses of gang members to rivals. Police say she's one of many.
A lot of the people who are providing their contract service do not know who's asking, do not know what it's for.
Tonight, police turning their focus to crime lords pulling the strings from overseas.
Those people hiding in other countries and who are complicit in causing the violence in New South Wales, we know who you are, we know where you are, and we are working to hunt you down.
Emma Partridge, 9 News.
Now, it's unknown to me, Alex, how many members of the Coconut Cartel might be former members of the Lollipop Guild from Munchkinland. I mean, all of the details of that story sound very severe, but I can't take the story as seriously as I probably should just because it's the Coconut Cartel.
I'm just disappointed Kamala voters who have now turned to dealing drugs, or?
Well, I mean, her loss was a disappointment to many people across the globe. They were very much in for the Brett summer, and they were let down. It was a very disappointing fall. So.
Yeah, from the coconut tree. Is that a?
Now we got one more story here out of Australia, actually, about another sort of criminal network bust. Before we move on here,
Well,
it was the surprise tech
that I will introduce afterwards. Sorry, go ahead.
What was that, sir?
I've attached one more to the space that I can introduce
okay.
if you want me to afterwards.
All right.
Sydney's underworld never saw coming. Police sending a dozen messages to burner phones after smashing the biggest supplier of encrypted devices in our state. Detectives say offshore crime bosses are using the mobiles in our ongoing gangland war to carry out kidnappings, murders and drive-by shootings.
It's how gangsters organise gunfire and bloodshed.
They need these devices to communicate with, coordinate and operate their business.
Police say offshore crime bosses use encrypted phones to order murders, kidnappings and drive-bys, keeping the young crews they've hired at arm's length.
We're alleging that these devices have been used in a number of the worst crimes that can be committed.
Yesterday, the organised crime squad arrested 4 Sydney men accused of working for the VIP network, the biggest supplier of encrypted devices in New South Wales.
We believe they're being coordinated by someone offshore.
One man was arrested at Bexley while his 2 brothers were picked up at Cogra and a 4th man at Greenacre. The group is accused of supplying up to 3,000 Chinese-made devices with encrypted systems to Sydney's underworld, selling the phones for about $2,000 each, making up to $2 million a year. Last night, police let all users know their phones were compromised. New South Wales Police Force have linked this Signal or Threema account with the VIP phone's encrypted phone supplier.
The message is to let them know that we're now looking into the device that they're using and probably prevent them from using it.
The custom devices don't have forward-facing cameras, have registered SIM cards and contain a function to wipe the phone if the wrong PIN is entered. Police say the heads of the Alameddines, the Coconut Cartel and the emerging Badger Network have been using these encrypted devices to conduct Sydney's ongoing gangland war. But their main mode of communication has been cut off.
Without these devices, it's extremely challenging for these people, these organised crime entities, to coordinate these crimes.
Emma Partridge, 9 News.
Did you get the Badger Network inside of there with next to the Coconut Cartel? I just can't. What is it with the names of these?
I believe it was the emerging Badger Network.
Okay, the emerging Badger Network. All right, the Badger Network is yet to fully find its state. It's in its early times. Okay,
still up and coming. Yes.
All right. I can't take this seriously. I should, I guess, but just pick some better names, more intimidating names.
They just have a different. they have different aesthetics as to cartel naming down under. You know, that's all.
The koala cabal is next, I bet you. All right. So okay, Alex, we'll do. I sort of had yours on the list here later, although I did forget to specifically.
I was just wondering.
I did neglect to specifically.
This is definitely in mine. Let me just.
I did neglect to add it. So let's go ahead and do this one now, even though we'll be talking about AI later. Go ahead and introduce this one.
So apparently, let me find the particular tweet that sort of introduces the topic better than I will. So YouTuber Hank Green has paused uploading on multiple channels after admitting he relies, quote, too heavily on, unquote, on AI. Quote, I need to come to terms with the fact that the level of dopamine I've been getting from interacting with LLMs is not healthy for me or good for the world, unquote. So that was bad enough. And apparently, and this is the part that I'm just losing my mind over. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are attacking him for this. And then I caught this particular tweet constellation that I posted that I feel like we could spend, a good month digging into, but I'm just going to read it as is, and people can form their own opinions about it. So one dude tweets out, they canceled my goat for using LLMs to search papers that he would need to read to make videos. They want him to use Google search like a caveman in big 2026, tweets one person. The other person quotes him and says, dude can afford to hire a researcher. And somebody else responds, what is so fascinating about this is how the Green brothers, or Hank at least, are self-proclaimed progressive, responsible employers, science-believing, artist-supporting libs, but here he is with the ChatGPT edition, LMFAO. That's it. I'm done, Gator. All
right. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Hank Green and his brother are extremely successful, moderately famous people who started on YouTube. They are two brothers who did what was early days called vlogs, which was the video version of a blog. So we're talking the really early days of YouTube's existence. And what they were doing is, I guess they were two brothers at the time who were both going to respective colleges at some point, but they were going to different colleges. And what they were supposedly doing, is my understanding, based on memory of their history, is that they were doing these public vlogs to each other. Their channel at the time was called Vlog Brothers, and one of them, maybe I think they might have done 2 a week, or maybe they just did one-off weeks, alternated. But they would make a video talking about stuff that they were learning and doing in life and post it to the internet, and then the other would respond. And so it was sort of a public way that they were keeping in touch and corresponding with each other about their adventures off in education land. And as they started doing this, they started to get popular. One of them became more of a novelist, went on that circuit. The Fault in Our Stars became a movie that was based off of a book that was written by one of the brothers, not Hank Green, but his other brother. It became a fairly successful movie. I'm guessing the book was successful too. And Hank Green has basically gone on to become a Bill Nye the Science Guy, sort of Neil deGrasse Tyson knowledge influencer, often science-based. And one of the personal problems I've had is that their frontward appearance is as if they are personally knowledgeable in all the things that they're doing videos on, but in reality, they're just doing this mass sort of outsourcing to people who are helping them write the scripts and construct the videos, and they're just the front face to the explainers or the informationals, and they wind up getting credit for being these extremely worldly, erudite individuals, but they don't actually possess the investment into gaining the knowledge themselves. And I find the situation kind of humorous, because in that pursuit of becoming the face of erudite, well-educated, well-rounded, brilliant minds that was really all outsourced in the background to other people helping them write scripts, do all the editing and all the other stuff. I'm not criticizing their success, but as far as my consumption, that's my criticism. In doing so, they had a more leftward progressive view of politics. And of course, so the people who followed them, let's say religiously, also sort of adopted that politics. And now, as they say, the chickens have come home to roost because guy can't even use the robots now to do his outsourcing. He has to
do it directly?
He has to outsource it directly.
Wow. Anyway, this friend of mine who goes under the account Mormo_music has a knack for finding these. Like I had no idea basically that this cluster of people existed. Right?
Okay.
Like, for whatever reason, I thought surely they're moved to Blue Sky. I just never ever see anything like this. So to me, it's been like, well, for lack of a better metaphor, like a wormhole in a simulation has been punctured. I've gained access to an entirely different universe where people are convinced LLMs don't work, but they're also upset because somebody's using them instead of Google, which is also an LLM these days, by the way.
Yes.
It's just not, the whole thing is not working for me at all. I'm I don't get time to be baffled by one take before the next take sort of overtakes it. It's just I'm lost. I'm just very, very confused about what's happening.
Well, Alex, the robots are stealing the jobs of the people who are making the other people look really intelligent.
I see.
So he should have seen this coming, given his politics, right? He should have seen that this was something that was coming, but I guess he didn't do a story on that yet. He could possibly do a nice hour-long story on how not following the politics that you profess to follow is going to get you called a hypocrite within your inner circles once you're busted for it. But I guess maybe that's something to do later.
One of the funniest parts is that in his apology, quote unquote, video, because of course he hasn't learned the key lesson, which is never apologize to these people. He said, I appreciate the pushback and yada yada, and people just latched onto that phrase and were convinced that his apology was written by AI.
Perfect. Now, Alex, we do this show weekly, and I am the primary organizer of the schedule for the show, what topics we cover, the story digest that's involved, things like that. You send me suggestions every once in a while, but primarily I take on the organization of the show. And how much AI would you imagine I use to put this together?
Like in what you like, tokens, or what unit would you?
Well,
like
if you
to
just
use?
quantify it however you wish, descriptively or an attempt at quantifying something.
I don't know, 50%. No units offered.
Wrong. The amount I use AI is actually extremely limited. Majority of the AI use that I have ever put into the show was quickly using Claude Code to help me write a series of automated scripts so that I could target videos to download, take the transcript file that comes with the video download. If it's a particularly long one, start to parse it into subjects. So like if it's a 50-minute long video, start to chop the 50-minute video up into about 6-minute segments of where it's the chops are actually at a subject difference or a good place to cut them, and then give me a small UI so that I can micro edit where the clips change so that I can make my clipping existence a little bit better. That is pretty much the bulk of how I've used AI for this show.
Fascinating. So you are, what you're saying is that you should have his audience. His audience, what they need in their life is Dr. Rollergator doing a fucking organic, human-sourced, ethically
There we
Fair,
go. Exactly.
whatever, free range
These
podcast.
exactly. Thank you. Free range. Exactly.
I'm hearing we have to cancel Dr. Rollergator because he doesn't use enough AI.
Insufficient use, yes.
I am not. I would be banned from the e-acceleration team for not being sufficiently AI pilled. I use it for sure, and I use it every day for stuff. But in the generation of this show, it is limited in its utility for me. I have once in a while asked it to take some random shit I say off the cuff and organize it into something that sounds better, but I haven't. Not too often. All right. So moving forward here. Hey, Alex, there was a big news story this week that took everyone's timeline sort of over for the day, and we're gonna get into that. I don't know how much there is to talk about, but we're gonna get into that story real quick.
Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs, they know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people.
There you go, Alex. That was about the most important segment of the entire Fauci hearing this week. It summarizes the entire experience of watching the
producer of this.
Whoopsie. It simulates the entire experience. So I think that's all we need right here. We don't need anything else to cover that. Alex, do you have any thoughts on the Fauci hearings this week? Anything that did come out this week, or perhaps it was just last week that you still want to talk about because it was possibly brought up and his Fifth Amendment taking was putting a block on fleshing out the discussion about it, or anything that you are hoping comes as a consequence of his hearing?
No, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, he just seems to be betting that this will, in effect, work, right? That's, whether he has a right to do what he did or not. He is betting that it is a delay tactic, and he only really has to go until November, where one or both houses will switch, presumably, at which point other stalling tactics can come in play.
Now, you say that because you would be expecting that a contempt hearing would need to have a contempt conviction, but that's also going to be by the chambers of Congress. And so if the Democrats take over, you don't suppose that he's going to get a conviction.
Look, I'm treating as fact that if the Democrats have anything to do with it, he will not be getting any harm come to him whatsoever. Okay, that is just I'm not even. It's not even a prediction. It's just an assertion. So, the Republicans have had control of everything for almost 2 years now, and this is the best they could do, which I guess is better than nothing. But I mean, it's not much.
Now, the reason his Fifth Amendment taking winds up having some controversy behind it is because on the way out the door, President Joey had given a series of blanket pardons for people who had at the time, no alleged crimes that they had committed being brought against them as charges, and had no convictions to overturn, but he gave them blanket pardons. And the pardon I have for Fauci that he gave was for any offenses against the United States which he may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through the date of this pardon, arising from or in any manner related to his service as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force or the White House COVID-19 response team, or as chief medical advisor to the president. So all the way back to 2014, he was covered. Why Joey decided to go all the way back to 2014 as a limit, or perhaps maybe he thought there was that was the legal maximum that he could do, perhaps only about 10 years time was his maximum limit. It would approximately be 11.
I think he used that kind of a window for everybody that he pardoned for what's it.
Okay. All right.
And by the way, I'm not entirely sure, but I think there's something about the fact that when you take the Fifth Amendment, you have to take it uniformly for everything. So I think there's some element, to the fact that he wouldn't answer, like what color is your tie or whatever, that to the degree that he believed that he could take the Fifth Amendment, this sort of
it is there's yes, if you don't take it for every single question, it becomes complicated to say that you haven't waived your Fifth Amendment right for a particular circumstance. But the controversy comes in that you don't have the Fifth Amendment right because So, but the idea would have to be that the crime that he's worried about committing is either outside of the scope, admitting to is outside of the scope of the pardon, because all the stuff inside the pardon is protected, and therefore he doesn't have the ability to take the Fifth Amendment, right, or the right to take the Fifth Amendment, or he is trying to not commit a new crime by committing perjury in the inside of the hearing, and therefore is trying to avoid committing perjury because he wants to lie about something else, to either cover up for other people who don't have the protection of a pardon, or to simply save face and not embarrass himself by telling the truth on something he may have done that would be a crime that is covered by the pardon, and therefore
so the
would be
idea
committing.
is, let's face it, we all know I'm gonna lie if I answer this. And I went through so much trouble to get pardoned for the last pack of lies, so I might as well just plead the Fifth and not self-incriminate, not by admitting something that I did was criminal, but by breaking the law now by speaking.
It's a couple steps, yeah, but so I think if I were to just guess based off of the way stuff looks from the outside, I would say he wasn't expecting some of the documents that were recently found to have been found, particularly what they're calling his diary,
right,
and therefore he probably doesn't even have access to it currently himself to review all of the things he might have put in it to know what he said versus what he might have said in public, to be able to even answer the questions that he's being asked in a truthful and honest way.
Yes, that is, I had that situation myself when I was trying to resolve some legal things with my former company, and it is maddening because you've written a lot of stuff that is on, the company drives and whatever. And when you're locked out, it is like, I'm pretty sure I wrote this somewhere, but I'm going to have to make a request in order to get it. And it's probably easier to just work around this question rather than try to figure, you're put in a very weird situation that most people are not normally put in, whereby you are now having to answer for something that came out of you, but you don't have access to, but somebody else does. You know what I mean?
And to give the devil his due, let's say, or at least steelman Fauci in that circumstance, to where he's written all these things. Perhaps he had contradictions in public with things that he wrote in private, even around the exact same time period. Let's say they even have instances of him writing something on a particular day and then going out on television. It's not always evident that something he wrote on one day was something he believed for a significant period enough of time that he even remembers the fleeting moment that he believed the thing he wrote at that time. Let's say
being Fauci, he might not believe anything. So
yeah. That's very possible, but I'll try to restate that so it's more clear, possibly what I mean. It's if 6 years ago he believed something for 2.5 days, but then during conversation with lots of people, hundreds of meetings, hundreds of television appearances, his perspective on whatever he believed, shifted. We'll say the evidence convinced him otherwise. He might not even remember the 3 days that he believed the other thing, just because there's so many topics to go on, so many different things to have, and so many different memories that accumulated, particularly if you believe that he had a private belief on a particular day and then went on 100 different news things saying the opposite. His primary memory in life is saying the actual opposite of that belief. So I don't know if every single time he said the opposite, he was secretly going in his head, I believe the opposite of this, and then, fixing that to memory.
Unfortunately for Fauci, he also went on TV and said, of course, if they call me to Senate, I don't think they should, but of course I'm going to cooperate. So,
well, of course, but of course, problem. Biden wasn't going to pardon Hunter either. So, it's just different days. You make different decisions. Who knows? That. Why be beholden to the jackass in the past who committed you to things when now you're you now, right? It's today you. You can't let the old guy lock you in.
That said, reading some of the excerpts, and I haven't done a deep dive, which is why I'm reticent to talk about it. But the one thing I did take away from the stuff that sort of was selected to come from my feed is that he was just very obsessed with his fame throughout all of this, which is wild. Like, if you're considering what it is you're doing and what it is you're inflicting on people, to have your personal fame be a factor in this at all, never mind a conscious factor, never mind writing it down and looking at it. How many bills with your name are on this, and who are you spending time with, and how much time you're spending on TV, and like stuff like that is just, if somebody was proposing that as a hypothesis to me about how Fauci works, I would have an innate, drive to push back against that, because it's too flat. You know what I mean? It's just too superficial. He can't possibly be that venal. Then again, he did get declared the sexiest man alive by the Guardian, so there's also that.
Well, who is his name's escaping me right now. Who was the, we'll call him independent journalist who was on the opposition COVID side, who was, I believe, did some reporting originally for the New York Times long ago, but then sort of went independent and rogue.
Dan something or other, McNeil.
No. He started to go.
I know who you're talking
first,
about. Yes.
Anti-vaccine.
Yes.
A bit.
Yes. Alex Berenson.
Yes. Okay, Alex Berenson. So last week, as this was going on, Alex Berenson posted that in Fauci's quote diary, there was an August. In 2021, an August 24th or something statement in this diary that said the Pfizer vaccine from Israel was showing signs of not protecting as strongly anymore. It was waning and blah 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 blah, and not protecting against serious illness and death as strongly as they wanted. And Alex was like, I was the first and loudest to speak up against this, and it turns out I was actually in advance of him on my Substack, where I had looked at the time initially spiking cases to where, if you recall, Alex, Israel had done an all Pfizer campaign, an all agreement to do all Pfizer, and they effectively got about 80 to 83% of their entire population vaccinated under this campaign. And it was like one of the best tests, because their government meticulously tracks everyone through this process and all of their symptoms and does the reporting. And they had like some partnership with Pfizer or whatever. And so all the data was as good as you might want to get. And I started seeing in early August, late June, July, early August, the cases start to spike. And I'm like, uh-oh, let's watch this. And I started to write a Substack where I was doing a predictive model that was just saying, all right, let's look at the way that infection reporting and death reporting occurred in the past. Colloquially speaking, it was a sort of just a generally stated fact that if someone was going to die after coming down with COVID, it was approximately 14 days. So I said, all right, we're gonna do some nice little Bayesian math here. We're gonna take the history pre-vaccine rollout of Israel's reported cases and deaths. We're going to make a prediction starting now that if we have these incoming new cases, we're going to get this many deaths 14 days later, and we're going to track this here for the next 2 weeks. Sure enough, the prediction that was just based off of the previous indicators matched. Okay, I don't have it on me to post the link now, but if you go on my Substack, you can find that the post title is "Are Deaths Decoupled from Infections?" Because a lot of at the time people were saying, okay, even if people are getting infected, now the deaths are still reduced. So I wanted to test that hypothesis. Do the deaths look exactly the same after this campaign as they did before the campaign? And sure enough, the predictions actually came true. So I beat Berenson, and so screw him. I just want to say,
look, your work at that time was incredible. And I actually got shit on for referencing it to somebody, but that's a different story. But I have immense respect for you. However, I will say, agreeing with Berenson, even if he agreed with you later, is actually evidence on the other column.
Oh,
in general,
darn.
One of my biggest regrets about the pandemic is that I happened to agree with Berenson on a couple of things from time to time, which I see as a moral failing. Berenson is generally has an incredible capacity for being wrong about pretty much everything. So it's really quite a dark place to be, where you're forced to agree with him. But I feel your pain. He's just so I've followed him since. A little bit, not a lot, but he emerges in my feed sometimes, and he's just, let me put it this way. So Berenson, right, is well known for doubting things about the efficacy of vaccines and masks, right? That was kind of his shtick. So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
So then he had a debate with Pierre Corey about ivermectin, and his argument was, but look at those big trials. They say it doesn't work. Literally, that was his argument. Do you not see how this applies to your other positions and other matters?
But just look at him.
Anyway, no,
Alex, just look at him. Just look at him. Look at him.
He does look like he suffers from multiple ailments. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just Berenson is a wild case. It fits my framework basically of there are people who are very courageous, who can grab some position and just friggin' go balls to the wall and not give a shit who's gonna come at them. But unfortunately, a good subset of those people are unable to backtrack if they are in fact wrong. And I feel like during the pandemic, we came in contact with a lot of those people who just happened to grab a position that agreed with ours at some point and then kept building on it.
Well, so I think
directions.
if I were to state what is likely going to involve that phenomenon, it's people you find being right about something who then try to make too many hard statements all the time because they had a record of making some really good home runs and they feel they need to have an opinion on every topic that someone's saying. They build this long, compendium of opinions and thoughts that they pretend are just as good as the ones that they spent the most time working on. Like you can't invest as much time as you might have into that one or two those one or two things that you really spent a lot of time researching to find out that something was wrong with it, right? And then spend that exact same amount of time on the myriad of things that you're also commenting on just as strongly the rest of the time.
I think some of those people, and I think we probably have to move on because we'd have to get specific, and I don't want to get too catty here, but some of those people probably spent more time on the stuff they were wrong on because my model of them at least is they just keep digging, right? Like once they're in a hole, they just keep digging. And again, like if it's a good hole, then you find gold and you keep finding gold, and that's great. But if it's a bad hole, then you
well, let me then modify my statement to be take the careful time to study the thing appropriately before forming your conclusion, as opposed to then trying to do it retroactively to defend your honor.
I was talking to my family in Greece, which is a fascinating situation for me. I don't live there, so I don't have much sort of idle conversation with them. And I found myself saying, like, my religion is uncertainty. Like, it's wild to me that people just like take positions on stuff where they clearly can't possibly have covered their bases in terms of like what else could be going on. But I do realize that for most people, this is mentally very uncomfortable. So like it makes sense that it happens, but somebody like Berenson has dug so deep on so many holes by now. It's just wild. Anyway, all right.
Well, Alex, I know you're a stickler that conspiracies are really difficult. They happen very rarely. It's hard to maintain them. That they're bound to spill, and that the moment that you're outed for being for a conspiracy existing, everyone immediately believes you, and they don't make it infinitely difficult to prove the conspiracy. They just understand easily because one person said, yeah. But I have perhaps something that goes against that idea, at least a small counterexample. Okay. A small little outfit that was involved in a conspiracy that might have some evidence against it. Now, in order to talk about the current outcome of a story this week, we have to go back to 2023, where 60 Minutes had done some coverage of the story. Now, as a small aside, Alex, when I was getting this organized, I mistyped. And right now, 60 Minutes is now in my list as being 6 minutes, which is actually probably accurate for the time that I have clipped from the show. But I just want to say that I did not go back and correct it. So this was technically 60 minutes, but it's now 6 minutes. So, Alex, I don't know if you've ever heard of that story.
No. Holy shit. What?
Now, I have a story that someday I might be able to tell that I've mentioned several times. There's someone who I have helped who has been going through something that is somewhat similar. It's not a corporation that's attacking him, but has gone through extremely similar sort of harassment campaigns and surveillance campaigns against him. And I can tell you that that type of activity can really harm someone's ability to live day to day. That is not simple stuff to get past.
I had something similar. Well, no, it was not similar. It was something in the same broad category, much smaller in scale, that you were helping me look
Yeah.
at.
Yes.
And even that was like, unnerving.
Yeah.
When somebody
Yeah.
is, indicating very clearly that they know where you live
Mhm.
and that they don't like you very much, and they keep advertising your home address.
Mhm.
Just that can be, very.
Well, you don't know what that person is trying to do. You don't know
That's right.
what their plans are. You don't know if there's anyone else that sees them posting your address going like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to mess with them. And therefore you have to somehow filter the millions of permutations of things you can imagine happening down to the things that you think are most likely to happen, and then tell yourself, okay, I guess it's not a problem as long as those things happen, and hope that you're right. Like
Yeah. Anyway, having had something that is effectively like 1% of what these people went through, I can, to some small degree empathize as to the, what must, like, not again, I'm not trying to compare, right? It wasn't anything like this.
No, I
I'm
got
just
you.
saying, like, I have a sense of what the kind of thing that goes through your head is, and it's just, it's a denial of service attack on your
Mhm.
logic,
Yep.
because your brain is constantly operating, trying to figure out the what is by design impossible to figure out, right? That's the whole point, is that you are now trying to predict everybody in the world, like the craziest person, what they do. And there's a lot of things they can do, and it's very, very hard to defend in it, because our world is built on the trust that most people are good people, or at
Mhm,
least they won't do
mhm.
anything completely batshit insane.
Right. It becomes a wholly different scenario when you find almost what you could consider pure malevolence, right? Where it's just a complete abdication of all sense of common morality, a desire to only ruin your life as their goal and their objective.
And by the way, it's beyond my own personal experience, I will say one of my rules about sense making about other people is that when you see somebody engaging in a complicated behavior, this is not the first time they've done this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this thing where the guy says, I want to see ashes, and then they recruit a team. This doesn't, like, in a normal company, you don't just call up 7 people and you quote unquote dispatch a team, right? Like this is a business practice that they have engaged with other people, has worked, has grown, has been filtered, has been refined, has matured, and now they just do it for, what appears to be small slights, right? Like this
Mhm.
is not, I am, I have a high degree of certainty that this is not the first group of people that this happened to. This is
Yeah.
just the one
Yeah.
time where they got caught. And apparently, we don't
Now,
know.
to be clear, it very much could be the first time that as an assembled team inside of eBay that they orchestrated that, but the individuals themselves likely had a history of doing something similar.
You don't, like, what I'm saying is, you don't look around any random office space and find 7 people who are willing to be dispatched to a remote city and start a harassment campaign that involves saw masks and pig fetuses and
Mhm.
whatever, following people
Mhm.
around. Like, normal people don't cooperate with that shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
A former
Right.
nanny? What? How does that? What
Yeah.
does that career progression look like?
Yeah, but I've been helping someone for the last several years deal with a large situation, several situations that sort of became co-entangled, but dealing with very, very similar stalking and harassment campaigns. There were no pigs masks sent to him or anything like that, but there's stuff that is sufficiently scary and sufficiently alarming and psychologically damaging that they've had to endure. But yeah, it's not good. Now, here's the update that backstory was required for. eBay reaches $55.7 million settlement with Massachusetts couple that was terrorized in stalking scandal. eBay has agreed to pay $55.7 million in a settlement with a Massachusetts couple that was the victim of a bizarre harassment and cyberstalking campaign orchestrated by former employees of the company. Ina and David Steiner, who run the trade publication E-Commerce Bytes from their home in Natick, started receiving online threats and upsetting deliveries to their home in 2019, including a bloody pig mask, live spiders, and a book on surviving the death of a spouse. Pornographic magazines addressed to David Steiner were purposely sent to their neighbors, and their home was listed on Craigslist as a nightly destination for singles, couples, and swingers. Quote, "We have had to fight so hard along the way that it's kind of hard to believe that it's over now, but we're very happy about it," Ina Steiner said. "That allows us to hopefully live the rest of our lives in peace." Law enforcement was able to trace a rental van that followed David Steiner one day back to an eBay employee, and in 2020, the Department of Justice charged 7 eBay executives and employees with cyberstalking. Some executives even went to prison for their role in the scheme. Quote, "It was terrifying to know that this online harassment actually ended up right on our doorstep in real life. It was so scary." Federal prosecutors say leaders at the company were enraged by the couple's newsletter and critical comments from readers who posted on their website. Quote, "Take her down," former CEO Dave Weinig texted. Quote, "I want to see ashes as long as it takes whatever it takes," former Chief Communications Officer Steve Weimer wrote. The Steiners told 60 Minutes that they started sleeping in separate rooms so that if someone broke in at night, at least one of them could call the police to escape. Quote, "It felt like corporate terrorism because we were terrorized and it was very calculated. It was very vicious." The couple will receive $48.7 million in this settlement, including $2 million from Weinig. eBay will give $6 million to various charities, and Weinig will also donate $1 million to a charity protecting First Amendment rights in Steiner's name. Quote, "I look past the money, look past the roaches and the spiders, and tell me what it says about the time we live in. Quote, we're happy that we have some financial security. That's like understanding it. It's crazy, but it's the message that it sends." eBay, which paid a $3 million criminal penalty in the case in 2024, said in a statement on Tuesday that we continue to extend our deepest apologies to the Steiners. Quote, "As we have long stated, what the Steiners were subjected to by the former eBay employees in 2019 was wrong, reprehensible, and should have never happened," eBay said. "We condemn, in the strongest terms possible, the employees who perpetrated and pled guilty to criminal charges for the misconduct against Ina and David Steiner." Weinig, who had said his "take her down" text referred to a communication strategy, also issued a statement, quote, "No one should ever have been subjected to what the Steiners endured in 2019, and I'm saddened by it, especially because it occurred during my time as CEO of eBay," Weinig said. Quote, "The harassment was deliberately done in secret and without my knowledge, as established by an independent law firm review, a federal probe, and the sworn testimony of the security employee convicted as the ringleader." The Steiners say they will keep publishing. Christopher Murphy, the attorney for the Steiners, said in a statement that this case is always more than obtaining financial recovery. Quote, "From the beginning, our clients wanted to uncover the truth, protect journalists and publishers, hold those responsible accountable, deter future corporate misconduct, and help ensure others who would never have to endure what they experience. We believe this resolution sends a clear message from the corporations and their executives cannot engage in this type of misconduct without facing significant consequences." Now, I want to add something, Alex, to some of the horror that people in this type of situation experience. This couple, I'm not saying they were fortunate overall, but they were very fortunate that a cop was able to get a lucky hit on a piece of evidence that allowed an investigation to start and continue a trajectory to taking them seriously. Because part of these campaigns, part of what makes them successful and particularly disruptive, is that you are completely, as the victim, you are completely aware something is going on. But you have to then tell other people. And the process of telling other people what is happening to you winds up being a collection of small anecdotes that is not organized in a very successful way that makes you look like you are insane. And the people around you start to think there is something wrong with you. And the more they don't believe you, the more frustrated you get, the more agitated you get, and the more desperate you get for someone to believe you, that you wind up appearing more and more unhinged and crazy, the more and more this goes on. And you then become isolated and alone, separated from people who used to be your friends or even your family, as sympathetic people in your life, because you are just constantly talking about how you are being followed and surveilled, and they are at times unable to see it. Now, some of the evidence that was here was a little bit harder to deny, but that's what happens a lot of the time.
And because a lot of this depends on pattern matching, right? And your pattern matching is through the roof, you do start to say things that are legitimately insane.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
In fact, I mean, this is a reasonably well-known strategy with dissidents that intelligence agencies use, which is to basically just fuck with them until they lose their minds. Like, this is not a joke, and I'm glad. Like, I was gonna say, eBay is gonna end up paying a hefty sum for this.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised, because I mean, you're not gonna put a corporation in jail, for better or worse, but they do have a lot of money that usually gets doled out in these situations. Of course, the CEO skated, which is fascinating. I love his defense, which was in effect, all I said is, this is a nice shop you got here. It would be a shame if something happened to it. I have no idea that my lieutenant, who was right there and heard me say that, would mean that I wanted something to happen to it.
Who could have known they would take it that way?
No, all I meant was take her down to our warehouses to see that our practices are not as bad as she says. That's all I meant.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane, like that going through that type of situation. And I'm glad that they're, seeing success in the legal system. People went to jail. That's parts of a catharsis that's necessary for some, because there are times where people will just get away with it, and it's unfortunate.
But mark my words, I'm sure there's more stories, more than one more story, where the same technique had been used and had worked. It's the same thing as like seeing an advanced organism. They don't just appear out of nowhere. They have ancestors and prior forms. And
you mean that's not the first squirrel to jump across tree branches in a very impressive fashion?
That is correct. Yes, there were a lot of faceplant before that.
Okay, all right. Good point. Yes. All right. Moving on, sir. Let's get through some Mamdani stories for the week here. Mamdani's done a bunch of stuff apparently here.
We know that for many New Yorkers, 30% at the grocery store means something very different. Since 2019, food prices have soared at grocery stores around the country by roughly 30%, in fact. Talk to shoppers around the city, and you'll often hear the same frustration. Wages have not kept up. Making matters even worse, some corporations have built out technology that allows for something called surveillance pricing, collecting personal data to charge some people more than others for the same carton of eggs, for the same gallon of milk. All of this leaves too many New Yorkers feeling like groceries are out of reach. And that is frankly unacceptable, which is why city government is stepping in to make people's lives more affordable. Today, I am proud to announce a collection of essential staples that will be predictably 30% cheaper at all 5 of our city-run grocery stores. This core set of goods will include all fresh produce, meat, and seafood, along with 20 other essential items like cheese, milk, and bread. Here's how it will work. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line. Not for our seniors living on fixed incomes, nor for the parents who rely on a regular supply of apple slices to keep toddler tantrums at bay. Now, Can we all see this incredible example of produce in my hand? Now you will see these plantains here, so for anyone wondering how much these beautiful plantains might cost, you can use this QR code or head to grocery.nyc to access our policy report. I'm going to demonstrate exactly what that means. Ladies and gentlemen, the QR code does work. You can see this here. There you can learn more about our city-owned grocery store program, including the 30% discount. 30% off adds up.
So, Alex, I'd like to make an announcement that I am retiring and entering the grocery store arbitrage business.
Of course. But I do believe they're taking ID at the door gator. I don't know.
Why? What am I doing? It's like it's my right as a illegal immigrant to buy groceries. I'm allowed to buy groceries. I don't have to be a citizen of the United States or a citizen of New York, right?
Yeah, but you have to be resident in New York. Yeah, no. They are
why?
I know. This sounds like parody, but they are checking ID.
I'm going to have to say, but what if they can't get an ID because they are? I mean, isn't this part of the reason that they need the government?
That's what.
I was just given a whole litany of excuses for reasons people can't have an ID, and it's suppressing them to vote. I think eating is more important than voting majority of the days. On the average day of the year.
They can't have a plantain. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. All right. Let's go. So, obviously, Alex, anyone who has spent at least one afternoon in accredited course in economics is going to have a mind flooded with issues with just this announcement without further explanation to the process. But off the top of your head, Alex, can you find anything that would require additional explanation for the functions? Because immediately your mind goes, well, this is an immediate problem.
Well, I mean, look, I'm going to, as usual, try to take the opposite side of this for reasons.
God bless you, Alex.
Because this is this dumb week after all. First of all, if you wanted to do this, let's say something came over you and you felt like you wanted to help the poorest in society to have cheaper groceries, which is, as far as motivations go, not the worst. You could just give them money, right? Or you could have a program where they give you the receipts from the supermarkets and you give them some money back, right? Like it's much less complicated to do that than it is to do whatever the fuck it is that they're doing with state-owned or city-owned grocery stores and
wait. I thought this was the steel man here.
No, all I'm saying is if you reduced it to that, then it just becomes another state program that, yes, is a bad use of money. But, if you tell me are we going to be using the absurd amount of money that the government is wasting on, fueling aircraft carriers that are in the Indian Ocean or paying for groceries for people, I'd be like, look, if these are my two options, I know which one I'm going for, even though they're both communism in some way. You know what I mean?
All right.
Fine.
Okay.
What I don't understand is the additional episode. Like, I think what makes all of this absurd is the opening of the stores. Specifically, it's like, why do it that way? You know what I mean?
Well, because I would say that part of that is because you're attempting to advertise the socialist perspective. Okay, you want it to be a government experience, and you are hoping, of course, that the initial version of that experience is something that gets pleasantly reported. That people walk in, the store is initially clean, the prices are 30% cheaper as advertised, the staff are friendly, and then you get the news reports of the people coming out of this, right, where because people are going to be saying, oh, this is communism, this is going to fail badly, the initial reports are, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. I'm able to, buy food for my, family to eat. We haven't been able to have this product in a long time. etc. And I'm sure there's going to be a comparison store for the free market that is run down and shitty and used as a terrible experience. And so now you are advertising socialism on top of just providing something for people who are in need. Now, immediately off the top of my head, there's going to be a million different types of problems that they're going to run into by trying to keep this operation afloat, and they are going to run into the same thing that socialists and communists run into, that they pretend that doesn't exist. They pretend that costs are prices alone. But costs are not prices alone. Costs can be reflected in prices. But when costs are not reflected in prices, costs pop up and are experienced somewhere else. They manifest somewhere differently. And when you have a situation like this, where you are saying this is going to be 30% off. He said plantains. I think if you look at the video, they do look more like bananas, and he just can't identify his goddamn produce. But
look, he's from Uganda, man. Like,
okay.
I feel like he's probably better than you at identifying.
Whoa. Okay. All right. We got a produce challenge here. All right. I actually go to the grocery store and do my own shopping, Alex. I'm sure Mayor Mamdani does not do so. Okay.
Well, if he believes, I will say one thing. If this man believes that apple slices can keep toddler tantrums at bay, oh boy. Clearly a man without children. Anyway.
Okay. Well, look. So right off the top of my head, Alex, the first thing that I can imagine is either now, and I say hopefully already in their plan, because that means at least they thought this through. But it may not be. But the first thing here, and of course they're not going to say it in the announcement, but you know what? Where costs are going to have to manifest realistically, they're going to have to put limitations on the quantity that can be purchased for a given item. When you're selling something at a 30% discount like that, an automatic 30% discount that has no basis in the actual underlying reality of the situation, you're doing it because you have achieved a subsidy from some other location. With the joke that I just entered in with after his clip played, I'm entering the arbitrage business. That's one of the first fucking activities you have to attempt to prevent against. You have to attempt to prevent against the arbitrage nature of the opportunity that you are creating. Okay, so what
listeners, arbitrage, it means basically, what if somebody goes into a store and says, I want to buy all the cheese, and then promptly crosses over to New Jersey and starts selling 15% cheaper cheese or whatever. Right?
Exactly.
That is an infinite money glitch, unless they can somehow control the leak.
So the 30% discount will have to have with it some sort of limitation on the quantity purchased for a given good by a given individual, which is, of course, now when you say that they're going to be checking IDs, that's going to be one usage of the IDs. If it's not now, it will have to be in the future. Because, again, I say I hope they have that in the plans now, because it means at least they thought this through. Because otherwise, it's dumber than I imagined, right? But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they understand at least some level of this stuff. So they're going to have quantity limitations on a purchase. But then you know what they're going to have to do, Alex? Because this is a socialist endeavor, they can't do it on a per ID basis. Okay? A mother with 4 kids to feed is going to be very different than a single woman. Okay, her necessity to buy certain quantities is going to be different. So you're still not going to completely get around that unless you know details about the economics of the people who sit behind those IDs. That this is the things that I don't believe that they truly have thought out past step 1 large, and so even if they do have the initial idea of that limited quantity thing, just the second level of, okay, but a single woman with no children who lives alone, well, probably with a couple roommates in New York, but who lives on her own, is not going to have the same necessity for quantity that a mother who is feeding 3 children and her husband on, right? And from a registered needs standpoint, they might be just as poor numerically speaking, but comparatively, but the quantity needs are going to be greater. And how are you going to know if their quantity needs are greater? You're going to have that citizen somehow provide evidence. Otherwise, you've just allowed the arbitrage to be offloaded to people who are single, who have a much easier time doing the bulk purchasing and getting that capital paid back, reinvestment repaid back to them because of doing the arbitrage. Like, it's just, have you ever heard of the way that people can sort of sell their EBT benefits because they actually don't use them oftentimes to buy the food, but people will buy the EBT value off of them because they can get the food somewhat cheaper?
No, but
by doing that. Yeah. So those systematic things are going to happen. There will be systematic processes where people are going to learn how to game that system by going to the single woman or the single guy and using them to go make the purchases if the quantities aren't distributed and balanced correctly based off of, quote, the needs of the people.
Basically, what you're describing is the phenomenon that some proponents of UBI are talking about, whereby people have calculated that the amount of machinery required to give some money to some people but not to others, and to distribute it correctly according to need, et cetera, is so great that it's literally cheaper to just give a bunch of money to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's actually cheaper to do that than to try to figure out to put all the kind of gates and then pay state type salaries to everybody to implement them.
Well, like structurally speaking, your kids are on the record books, right? So you have a family of 6. Well, look, you got 4 kids. The mom gets a dividend, the father gets a dividend, and each of the kids get their dividend because they're on the books according to the state, right? That's logically a 1-to-1 situation, right? Person registered to the government gets money. Sort of easily calculable, right? Mm-hmm. Not complex. But now we have a situation where they're going to the store to make purchases, and they are now in charge of parts of the decision, right? Like, Alex, you like last year or something, were starting up a running regimen, right? I don't know if you've kept that up or not, but for a while you were like going to start doing a lot of cardio or something, right? Am I memory correct on that?
I still run. Yeah, still do run.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't do running so much as I do weightlifting. Okay. Now, weightlifting, people get really focused on their macros, what they call their macros, their carbs, their protein, their fats, right? Uh-huh. Their balance of their macros. And I don't know, Alex, stereotypically, what does someone who's really focused on weightlifting typically consume for an average meal? It's stereotypically like chicken and rice is like the only right. thing they eat. Okay. So now I'm not that extreme, but just as an example, if I were to fit that profile and really just focus on a balance of particular carbs and particular proteins, I'm going to be loaded up on chicken and rice. Now, am I going to be allowed to have that 30% discount buying nothing but chicken and rice at this store, or am I going to hit the quota?
Right. Does the mayor approve of your weightlifting regimen? Is what you're saying?
Right.
Protein to starch mixtures and whatever.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Again, to me, all of this thing is just basically sparkling food stamps with the additional sort of theatrics involved with not just giving it the way that people have figured out that sucks but doesn't like suck too bad. but adding the whole thing where like there's a ceremony involved where you have to go to the government store and I don't know, do the equivalent thing. All the equivalent gates will have to be installed anyway, in some way or other, and they're not going to work very well. And yes, some people are going to profit off of it, et cetera, et cetera. But what I find interesting is the theatrics of like, no, we're gonna make you go to the store every single time, so you really remember that here we are fucking socialists. It's wild.
Yeah, and so I'm going to predict, Alex, that we have an initial launch that gets glowing coverage. They're going to be interviews of people going, "This is wonderful." People whose stories of struggle are going to be heartwarming, in the sense that now they've been able to provide a nice meal for their families, and that's going to be the end of the coverage of the government store in the regular media, and they're not going to follow up.
From the startup game, it's well known that the fastest way to grow something really, really fast is to sell dollar bills for 80 cents.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it. And I mean, that is literally, they're selling them. They're like 80. That's too much. We got to sell them for 70. And by the way, they are confused. I think we have to dig into that whole complication that he keeps talking about, where we're going to set it at the first day of every month, and then the prices are not going to change. Why? Like, I think there's something going on with the fact that he keeps repeating this, because I don't fully understand why that is so important that he has to say it every time. And what's really confusing me is that if you set a 30% discount at the first of the month and you commit not to change it until the first of the next month, you're really offering an average more than 31% discount, right? Because prices generally go up.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they've thought everything through enough to even, be able to take credit for it.
Well, so a typical news story that goes around whenever gas prices the barrel of gas price starts to go up on the market, is that the price at the pump will start to rise, and there will be occasionally stories that come out. It's like, well, why the oil's, the gas is already in the ground by the time that this is there. This was purchased on a different price per barrel, et cetera, et cetera. Why is the price at the pump going up if it was cheaper when they actually bought it and put it in underneath the dispenser? And the answer, of course, is because that station does need to make a purchase of the new stuff. So they actually have to tie their prices to whatever the current price of the next batch is going to be, because if they don't, they have to go into debt in order to buy the next batch.
Right.
Like that they're trying to actually stay, afloat. So they have to raise their prices when the price of the next batch that they have to buy goes up, so that whenever they do have to buy it, they can buy it, and then competition, when the price starts to go down, maybe slightly slower to catch up to the reduced price on per bill, but it gets there. It's not like they keep it high forever, because competition does wind up bringing it down. The people, go ahead.
No, this is why I'm saying like that this kind of brain rot is cross party, because even like Trump has been doing this, where he's like accusing the oil companies of not bringing down gas prices fast enough, because surely we've now done the peace with Iran and won the war for the 78th time. We're tired of winning. So
how else is he going to get that number of wars stopped up? Yes, you can say, well, it's the same war. Okay, yeah, but it paused for a bit, so it stopped. He stopped it.
It's both. Okay, this is a change of topic. But it's both the same war, and congressionally speaking, it's not, because they're claiming that the ceasefire was a end of the first war. And any new action is a new war, and therefore the votes of Congress don't count. Just so we're clear, it both is and isn't a new war.
Excellent, perfect. So, but going back to your point of the 30% discount and the price being fixed for the month, if there is a price spike in any ingredient, they will have to possibly either purchase fewer, because I don't know what the budget allocation is for this type of process.
Look,
Are
that's the
they
real question,
are they
right?
guaranteeing
How
a specific
much money-
quantity?
How much money are they willing to burn on this? Because ultimately, the limit of this is literally the entire consumption of any objects that they are willing to subsidize for the entire state of New York, plus the added demand, because making them cheaper makes them more, increases demand of the thing, right? Maybe I'm not willing to eat so much cheese, but hey, if you make it much cheaper, I'm going to substitute other things with this cheaper cheese. So now,
Yes.
it could be, let's say, napkin math. Like, it could be
Yeah.
the entire consumption of those objects times 2 in the whole, region that they're willing to cover, plus any losses, of course, and any, other expenses required. That's what they're exposing themselves to. Because, let's be straightforward. Supermarkets have like a 2%, or well known to have like a 1 to 2% profit margin. Right? Like, so when you're saying 30%, what you're saying is we are just gonna it's not like they're gonna go to the suppliers and get the thing for less. They're gonna get it for like a tiny little bit less, maybe, or maybe more because they don't have the volume yet, or whatever.
Preference curves are not linear constructions. They are curved constructions.
Right.
And what your point here is very, very salient. It's effectively speaking. Okay, again, I say costs are going to manifest somewhere, and so it's going to be quantity limitations. I'm going to promise you either that or they'll just be perpetually out of every fucking item, except for candy peanuts, the squishy ones that nobody ever buys.
Plantains. Maybe that's how they're going to do it, man. They're going to be
it's just all plantains
as you want, and it's like, we don't want fucking plantains.
Exactly. Yes. Perfect. Okay, but so a preference bundle is an economic sort of analysis. Now, it's not something that you can quantify for an individual in any hard way, but it's conceptually valid in that if you have a fixed budget, a fixed income, and a fixed amount of money that you can spend on goods, there are trade-offs between all of your various options. And you can say like, okay, well, at this level of income, I'm really happy buying, I'm a single individual. I buy for myself. I'm happy buying 5 apples a week when I go to the grocery store. I'm happy buying 5 apples. And I effectively attempt to buy the foods that I'm going to eat in a quantity that's going to match the week that I want to live. Okay. But if there is a situation, let's say, where certain things can be frozen and non-perishable or something like that, or items that are more of a delicacy that you don't tend to buy, whenever you are getting what is effectively a 30% pay bump, right? You are getting an additional income effectively, okay? Because yes, the prices are going lower, but that means your ability to purchase is going up, which is just the same as if you got more income to go to a normal store in certain ways. Then the things you might want to buy are going to change. It's not just going to be that you're going to buy the same bundle of goods in the same quantities. It's just now you're spending 30% less. It's now that you can change your preferences to the other. Your preferences in general are static. You've just now had the opportunity to express them differently. But if you understand what I'm saying, it's like you get to now choose the more delicacy.
Like, if you were going to go to the store and make a cherry cake, right? And you're like, oh, shit, I forgot. We have effectively free apples in this state, so I'm just going to make an apple cake. Apple pie today, like you just start to substitute the distortedly cheaper things for all sorts of other things that you might want to use, because all of a sudden when something becomes cheaper, it starts seeping into all sorts of other uses. Like, I don't know, let me put it this way: there is a value of apples when you wanted like a counterweight for some machine that you are building. Like, you just go and buy a bunch of apples to weigh it down with, rather than like, I don't know, iron, because hey, they're free. Like, apples are not just like an edible fruit. They can be all sorts of things, once their price is distorted sufficiently. Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough.
I'm just saying they haven't even factored.
They are signing a blank check. If I was a supermarket in New York, I would just like stop trading in those items and possibly consider pulling out of New York, just in case. And this is totally likely that we are going to see those headlines too, whereby now New York is just forced to be the supermarket with 5 items for everybody, or something along those lines. And now we have food deserts because New York is not supplying supermarkets for people, and the argument of we're not in the supermarket business is actually is no longer available for them. I don't know. All I'm saying is this is a check for a fairly large amount that apparently New York had, but didn't want to spend before, or they're willing to tax for, or something. But I guess I'm like, I want to put a limit on the outrage of this, because on some level, government.
I'm not outraged.
All the fucking time.
I'm not outraged.
It is outrageous. It is. It's just I'm in a fairly large category of things that are outrageous. The government.
I'm not outraged. I'm a little. I'm a little depressed by it. Okay, because it just. There's a degree to which it's like I'm depressed by it in the sense that I wish that it wasn't received as so much of a brilliant idea, because there's a level of steps that people just aren't thinking if they go, yeah, this is great right off the bat, without having a myriad of problems that they demand, that pop up into their head that they demand an answer for, to see how they're going to handle this, because it's just the premise of the idea as at the ribbon cutting sort of ceremony there is lacking in providing you. It's just that the premise is so stupid off of those details that it not providing it and people clapping is just depressing as hell. And the fact that the average person is going to say in their head, if they're applauding this, that it took the voters to create this, and not answer the question, really, why? Why has nobody else tried this? Or have they tried this, and there's a reason that this doesn't exist all over the place? Like, this idea has been tried and does not wind up being particularly sustainable without just hiding the sustainability in losses through some account that's bleeding money that you just don't let anyone see ever. Like, okay. All right.
Okay. Gator, in the history of this podcast, I don't think I've ever played my person who grew up in socialist country card.
Oh,
so
all right. Okay.
Maybe now is the time. But I guess I'm not shocked at all. Because like, this is just how politics were in Greece as I was growing up. So one story I can tell you is, so my dad was an air traffic controller at the local airport. Okay. And the airport was like very tightly coupled with the government airline. So we just had free tickets to anywhere on standby. Okay. So we could only go if there was a seat available for us to go, and we had to wait for it. But I've gone to Japan with those, with that, right? I've gone to a lot of places as a kid. Because my dad worked at the airport, and therefore any free seat on any airplane with the government airline was just available for us, because I guess somebody negotiated that perk at some point, and then that was available. And hey, I mean, it wasn't like the people who agreed to it had to pay it out of their own pocket, so whatever. Anyway, but that airline was known to be, let's say, very comfortably staffed. And when I grew up later, like I found this chart somewhere that showed the number of hires per year at that airline. It was called Olympic Airlines. Probably people don't know it, but at the time, once upon a time it was a great airline that was private, and then it was nationalized, and then what I'm describing happened, where the number of people hired to that airline, like the graph had a very specific, it was like a that heart monitor that goes like up and then down and up
Yeah.
and then down, and that
Yeah.
period was exactly 4 years, which is when the elections were happening. So basically every time there were elections, a bunch of people got hired to that fucking airline, and of course stayed there forever with government employee, permanence and all the protections and the pensions and yada yada yada. Long story short, that airline went bankrupt, got sold for parts to a private airline, and the cycle of nature is completed. But I don't know. I that whole charade went on for like at least a couple of decades. And that's just one of the many things in Greece that were run by the state in a similar fashion. So,
Well,
all I'm
Amtrak
saying
here in the
is,
States,
I am not-
Amtrak here
I'm
in the
not
States
shocked.
has never run a profit. As of 15 years ago, when I last looked into it, has never run a profit in a single year in its entire existence. So it's always run at a loss, and I don't think Amtrak is meeting anyone's masterful strokes of genius awards. Sometimes, hey, it works, and it might be convenient, and that's about it. What was that?
Check the hiring charts. Check the hiring charts.
All
I
right.
guess with DEI, they found a way to get their people hired without having to own the company. So I guess that's another way to do it.
All right. Moving to more Mamdani.
Controversial pied-à-terre tax tonight is causing a lot of confusion and frustration. The tax targets multimillionaires who own expensive second homes in New York City. Here's the confusing part. The city recently sent notices to 17,000 residents that they may, and the key word is may, owe the tax. It is putting the burden on residents to prove that they do not owe the new assessment. Otherwise, they have to pay it. You can imagine the reaction. Here's Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett.
It's been said that you can't fight City Hall, but try telling that to thousands of New Yorkers who may be facing 5- and 6-figure tax surcharges because the city thinks that their primary homes may be secondary homes and subject to Mayor Mamdani's so-called pied-à-terre tax.
What people are really saying is, this is not fair. I shouldn't have to pay this.
Real estate attorney Ben Williams says the city is casting a wide net in its hunt for luxury second homes, putting thousands of homeowners on notice that they could be subject to the tax and giving them a deadline to prove they're not.
You're guilty until proven innocent. They're going to assume it's not a primary residence unless you can prove otherwise.
Today, we're taxing the rich.
Earlier this year, the mayor insisted the goal was simple.
This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich.
Yesterday, he defended the administration's approach.
One of the reasons that this is being done now is to ensure that New Yorkers have requisite time before the implementation of the surcharge. They have until next March to be able to go back and forth with the department to ensure that this is an accurate reflection.
You have to now go and upload your income tax returns, your utility bills, and say your driver's license, your voter records, which are all mostly government records. The government already has that information.
Jim Whalen is the president of the Real Estate Board of New York, which opposed the tax.
The administration was not prepared to start to roll out this complex tax and seek to administer it. And we're a little concerned it's not going to get much better in the continued implementation.
Mamdani says 24 staffers are being hired to help homeowners navigate the system. The filing deadline for exemptions is August 24th. The Tax Commission will hear appeals through March. At City Hall, NJ Burkett, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Now, Alex, this tax has had a little bit of pushback from people who are supposedly supporters of Mamdani. In fact, Scott Galloway has been, clips of him talking to Kara Swisher have been floating around where he has had a complaint about this tax, not because of the tax himself. He approves of the tax, but something about Mayor Mamdani's behavior has been off-putting to him.
and I've been doxxed.
You've been doxxed? What? Tell me.
So I don't know if you've heard, but Mayor Mamdani has decided to release a list of the 950,000 residences with addresses and names that might be eligible for his pied-à-terre tax. I came out in favor of this tax. This is the definition. He's taken a legitimate source of tax revenue and he's turning it into a wanted poster. And the question I would have is, other than trying to identify and imply these people have done something wrong, and then 18 months after a healthcare CEO was executed in the street, and then publish the list, what is the upside here? Why is he doing this? New York is the last place you want to demonize success.
Yeah,
the reason people move to New York is they think, I want to be successful on Broadway. I want to be successful in business. I want to be successful in the arts. And no one's going to get in my fucking way if I'm really talented and work hard. We're going to celebrate it. We're not going to put a big R on your door and say you've done something wrong because you're successful.
Yeah, I don't know quite why he did it since he got the tax. The tax was going through. He's seeing some polling where it's not. He's already won, and I'm not sure why he's doubling down with a losing move. It's bizarre. I find that bizarre. And in a time when people's public information, even if it's public, to call attention to it when you're so prominent is a real problem. I mean, we all complain about Facebook and others using our information, and justifiably. To do this is very similar. It feels very creepy. It feels very surveillance. It feels very, even if you don't like Ken Griffin, even if you don't like all these rich people lording it over New York, they should pay their taxes, and that's that. It should be that's that. And it seems really unusually pugnacious toward. I don't understand. I was sort of shocked by this story, and I'm going to wait for more reporting on this. But it seems ridiculous to call attention to it when it's people you want to also stay here and you want to get their taxes. Anyway, I would agree with you, Scott. I don't like it.
Well, so I'm glad everybody's starting to learn what communism is and like what communists believe and think about. I mean, come on. The guy surrounded himself with several people who said that wealth confiscation and confiscation of all property is the ultimate goal that they want to achieve in life. Now, I know that they have low chances of attempting that just as a mayor, but that's what they ideologically want. So why are you surprised that they're making you, they're implying you've done something bad by being rich?
All I'm gonna say is the two stories connect, right? And again, I'm not like so big on beating up on Mamdani specifically. Is it the most important story in the country? Probably not. But now we see where the money's coming from. Remember, I said before, they must have some source of revenue. Okay, well, at least that answers my question.
Yeah, I guess I just love it when people discover, hey, this is what communism or communists think and believe. Yes, it is. They ignore all of the.
They don't. Sorry, I don't think the guy has discovered anything. I mean, he is Scott Galloway, who is professionally clueless about everything, but he hasn't discovered. He said, "I supported Mamdani, and also New York is the place where you should come and succeed, and nobody should get in your way." It's like, excuse me, like, no. If you voted for Mamdani, New York is the place where we take care of everybody, even if we have to damage the people that have more potential to get ahead. And I think they're still manning it too. I think that's kind of the brand. So I don't know what part of that is like meritocracy, capitalism, and be all you can be. These two thoughts don't go together. Even Steelman, they don't go together. So no, actually, it's the opposite that you voted for. I don't know what you thought, but
well, we don't include Mamdani.
They voted for.
Ah, you're back, Nathan. Hi.
Hello.
No, Alex. We don't include Mamdani too often in here. We occasionally do a little story, but we don't include him too much. But this was a lot of Mamdani stuff in one week, and particularly a lot of his, main ideas coming into fruition, this grocery store being one of them. That's something he campaigned on. So it's an important thing to bring in. So we cover it, probably won't cover it again until, we have to talk about how they've run out of plantains. But we're going to move forward here, Alex. And just for historical accuracy, Alex, you have a green card. You are not a U.S. citizen. You were not born in the United States, but you live here, and you do have somewhat of a fondness for these United States. Is that correct?
Well, mostly that it's my children's, country of birth. So yeah.
That's it. That's it. You don't think some of us are nice, or we gotta.
I mean, maybe you specifically, Gator. I don't know about the rest of the people.
All right. Okay.
I can't vouch for the audience, but I'll
all right.
For you.
Okay. All right. But because
sliced liver over here.
you were born in Greece, correct? You were a Greek citizen.
Look, I wasn't aware at the time, so I'm told.
All right. Fair enough. But there's no reason to expect you to remember all of the presidents in the order they came in, correct? The United States presidents. No reason to expect you to.
Correct. In fact, I don't.
All right. Okay. Well, despite that deficit, maybe if you rack your brain, you can remember the last president before Trump.
Yes.
Joe Biden.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It was a long time ago, but the last president was Joe Biden. And I want to go back to something that was a controversy for Joe Biden towards the latter half of his presidency, where he had the DOJ go after Donald Trump for having confidential documents, top secret documents at Mar-a-Lago. And subsequently, it was discovered that Joey had top secret documents in his garage where crack cocaine addict Hunter Biden was often staying. Right? And there was an investigation that produced something called the Hur report. There was a special investigator named Hur who released a Hur report. One R, no, but it's just HUR. And that report on the news got sort of stated and framed in one way as just being her doing a smear campaign against Joe Biden, because in the Hur report, he concluded that Joe Biden sure did have these top secret documents just kind of laying about, and he did purposely take them, and he did purposely have them and intentionally have these documents he wasn't supposed to have. But he's old and forgetful, and a jury would be too sympathetic to even try to prosecute him. He forgets many things. And they were saying that was a dirty blow. And I'm going to propose to you, Alex, that Hur did him sort of a service and did all of the left a service by concluding that and throwing that in the in that paper. And we're going to revisit that period just to get a taste of what the news coverage was like as they were trying to complain about that comment in the report as opposed to some of the substance.
Congressman, what do you say to those like Dean Phillips, who's running for president on the Democratic side, who says the special counsel's report essentially hands Trump the election?
I think that's false. I think what everyone will soon realize is that this is a Republican special counsel who completely went out of his way to editorialize, to include material in his report that is unnecessary and irrelevant to what he was tasked with doing. And the fact that he's Republican and he's exonerating President Biden, and he knows he's going to be under attack because Republicans want to create this false equivalency between President Biden and former President Trump. And so he throws something in there to help his fellow Republicans. What you don't see in this report is what you saw in Special Counsel Mueller's report, which is 10 specific incidents of Donald Trump obstructing justice. What you do see in this report is incredible cooperation, full cooperation by President Biden, who respects the independence of the Department of Justice, respects the role of the Department of Justice, and respects the fact that a Republican special counsel, he said he thought that was correct, that he should have been assigned to this. Donald Trump has no respect for the rules, no respect for a criminal justice system, no respect for the law. And let's focus on the distinction between Joe Biden's cooperation about similar issues and Donald Trump's gross abuse and obstruction in order to hold on to classified materials that he knew full well were classified and that he should not do it. That should be the story here. It shouldn't be a story about some offhand comment by a Republican special prosecutor that has nothing to do with what he was charged to investigate or conclude.
So, of course, at that end part, he's referring to the comment that Hur put in the special report that Joe Biden was, old in age and would just be seen as sympathetic to a jury, that he was forgetful and didn't remember a lot. And this was Morning Joe covering the same thing on MSNBC.
But we kind of need to stop there. A neurologist?
You're talking about her.
Her, from Trump University.
No.
And I've got to stop right here. I know we want to go on and finish this report, but I've just got to start. Ken Dilanian, so bizarre, and there's so many people that immediately heard these random conclusions, irrelevant conclusions, politically charged, Trump-like ramblings. Who, first of all, wondered why in the world he would put that in a report, his neurological assessment of Joe Biden, and secondly, why Merrick Garland would release garbage like that in the Justice Department report. Can you give us any insight? Because it sure sounds like James Comey in 2016, who July couldn't indict Hillary Clinton legally, so he decided to hold a press conference and indict her politically.
Joe, I understand where you're coming from on that. I think a lot of people feel that way, but let me give you the explanation that I have heard from Justice Department officials and some insight into why that was in there, though it did seem gratuitous to a lot of people. If Rob Hur is saying, I have evidence that Joe Biden willfully retained classified information, then in fact, he didn't just find those documents in 2022, as we all thought. He actually found them in 2017, and he's recorded saying that to his ghostwriter. So why isn't he charging him? Well, he has to explain that. So the explanation is Joe Biden said he didn't remember. He was recorded saying, I found classified documents in my house in Virginia to the ghostwriter. He's recorded disclosing classified information to the ghostwriter, according to this report. But he says he forgot that. So Rob Hur has to explain that, in fact, the larger context here is that Mr. Biden has forgotten a lot of things. He forgot the dates that he was vice president, according to this report. He forgot at one point during the interview when his son died. He forgot a key figure in the Afghanistan debate that he cared a lot about, which side of the debate he was on. And so Rob Hur felt like he had no choice, I'm told, but to lay out in detail the faults he found with Joe Biden's memory and explain how that would be perceived in front of a jury, because he's going to have to go up to Congress and justify to a bunch of angry Republicans why Donald Trump is being charged with retaining classified documents, but Joe Biden isn't. So that's the explanation. A lot of people may not like it. Maybe people thought he went too far. And you know, I've obviously heard from people who speak for Mr. Biden who say, you know, look, how did Rob Hur evaluate his memory in a 5-hour interview? I've been with him, you know, for years, and I think his memory is a lot better than that. That's a fair point, I think. You know, Rob Hur is ultimately going to have to go to Congress, and he's going to have to answer for this. But that's the explanation.
Well, I mean, it's so gratuitous. And John Hyland, something else that jumped out is, again, the word willfully.
All right, so the coverage continued mostly to try to paint this as a unconscionable smear that Hur was doing. It was political pot shots talking about that. And then eventually, you may recall, I'm not going to play it because I'm going to be respectful of time because we have more to get through today that's going to be interesting to talk about, that the audio came out from the Hur interviews that sort of put a nail in that coffin of why he wrote that, because people realized that Hur didn't press Joe Biden about when his son Beau died, and under pressure Joe Biden got it wrong. You heard a meandering Joe Biden forget his train of thought over many, many minutes, continuing to talk about these tangential things that trailed to nowhere, and then in his own memory recall talking about his son Beau and failing to bring up the year that he died in his own memory. So it sort of put a nail in the coffin that there was no reason for her to bring this up. But something they were in my estimation, intentionally downplaying was something that reporter on MSNBC had said in response, which was that Joe Biden did not, through this cooperation of investigation, just find these documents in 2022. He actually found them at least back in 2017 and willfully took them and knew that he had them. And that is where we have some new news this week. CBS News has apparently obtained audio recordings from that time period where Joe Biden in 2017 was talking to his ghostwriter, and they have a couple choice excerpts from it.
Breaking news tonight about former President Joe Biden. Today, roughly 70 hours of recordings of an interview he did with a ghostwriter in 2017 before he was president were released over Biden's objections. Senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins me. Weijia, what do these tapes tell us?
Well, Matt, the newly released audio shows that in 2017, when former President Biden was writing a memoir, he told his ghostwriter on several occasions that he had classified documents in his possession. Biden can be heard saying, "I just found all the classified stuff downstairs," in reference to volumes of notes Biden kept in his home. He also said, "Some of this may be classified, so be careful." Biden, who fought for years to keep these recordings private, would later publicly criticized President Trump for his handling of classified documents. We asked a spokesman for Biden for a comment about the new tapes, but he said they don't have one. Matt.
Weijia, thank
you. So I haven't been able to get any copies of those audios or anything yet, because that was just news like the other day, Friday or something like that. So I don't know if they're going to release any of them.
State Department says it takes.
Apologies.
I did actually hear the audio somewhere. So
okay.
It must be out.
I still like the quotes though, like, "Hey, I just found a bunch of documents. Just found a bunch of them. Some of these are classified. Hey, just be careful, okay? You're not supposed to see them, but whatever. Who cares?"
Yep.
Like now, you may recall, Alex, that the mustache has recently pled guilty to that same sort of problem of having classified documents and handing them to a ghostwriter. That he has been under fire, and so the famous mustache, the warmongering famous mustache.
I'm just not. President malfeasance is just not. My fire for going after Joey for that shit is just gone.
I didn't say we should go after him. I said that Hur did him a favor.
Of course, Hur did him a favor.
By framing that as him just he's just listen. He's very forgetful. It's just don't even bother. Like that's a gift.
Hur did what he had to do to do him a favor.
Like. Because I don't know. Hey, I got a bunch of classified documents. Just be careful. It's not the level of clearance security checking that you need to do.
And just so we're clear, he wasn't president at the time, I believe, when that was going on. And
no, he hadn't been yet.
When he took those documents, he was vice president, which means
Correct.
Also that he didn't have a number of protections that Trump was claiming, as in, I can declassify something in my mind, which is less preposterous than it sounds. But none of the far-fetched or less far-fetched defenses that Trump had apply to Biden. So arguably it's a worst case. But again, nothing matters. Nobody gives a shit. Everybody, like all this stuff. Like we are in a very different time now. Have you followed the case of the privileged access to Truth Social APIs product?
I heard approximately 2 weeks ago that there was going to be some millisecond advanced API post. I mean, I guess you could do some sort of automated trades. You could do some sort of automated trades with that, but but at the time that we're talking about milliseconds difference, I'm already that's way too far out of my advanced stock market manipulation tools to like I don't.
It also costs about $100,000 to get, so I don't know.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's not cheap exactly. But I don't know how many milliseconds they give you. Maybe they give you thousands of them. So.
Yeah, you better hope that you don't have any network hiccups paying that much. You don't want to lose those milliseconds.
Yeah, presumably you're going to invest in a good network setup.
All right.
But anyway,
well.
All I'm saying is things have gone through an event horizon, at which point, I'm already sort of mentally prepared that Trump is going to just blanket pardon everybody as he goes out, and that's just going to be how it goes.
Well, will I be on that list? Because if I'm on that list, then
no, I mean everybody who has been in his administration and he doesn't hate by the end of it.
Well, because I was
going to short list. I don't know.
I was asking because I would really need to know this in advance if I was going to be on that list, because that really would change my decision-making capabilities here.
Well, do you have $100K for an API key?
Is that what it takes? Is that what it takes? Because listen,
I don't know.
Listen,
I mean,
Alex, I do not have a spare $100K to just shit away on an API, but I do absolutely have $100K of pardon cash.
That's a separate account. And that's completely unconfirmed, of course, and totally not true, and allegedly, a pardon in the Trump administration goes for $1 to $2 million. It's not something you secure with $100K unless you're going mass market with the pardon.
All right. Well, I would probably have to take some actions requisite of a pardon to get the money to afford the pardon. So,
what have you done? just checking.
All right. We're gonna try to zoom. Yeah,
Moving
exactly.
swiftly on.
All right. Well, all right. We're gonna. I want to head towards Traces of AI Dystopia, because my favorite story of the week is inside of there, Alex. So I want to get through some of the next here. This is not that yet. So, U.S. prosecutors charge Atlanta man after Graphene OS phone wipes itself during airport search. A federal case in Atlanta is raising questions about a privacy-focused mobile operating system, with prosecutors arguing that its features were used to erase evidence. The U.S. Department of Justice is attempting to prosecute Atlanta resident Sam Tunick under a federal statute that makes it a crime to destroy property in an effort to prevent it from being seized. The case centers on Tunick's use of Graphene OS, an open-source operating system that works on Google Pixel phones and lets users enter a passcode to wipe a device clean. Experts said the legal approach is unusual and maybe the first time the law has been aimed at an operating system. Quote, "It's concerning, and it sends the message that Graphene OS is criminal by default," said Christopher Boutrey, a cybersecurity surveillance expert. Boutrey and Bill Buddington, senior staff technologists at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, both said they had not seen a similar case. The incident began at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on January 24th of last year. Tunick had just returned from a trip to the Dominican Republic, where he was stopped for questioning. According to court testimony, federal agents had already circulated his name and photo internally, saying he was under investigation for suspected terrorism activities because of his alleged association with the movement against Cop City. Tunick was taken to a secondary screening room where multiple agents questioned him. A motion filed by his defense argues the interrogation focused on child sexual abuse material as a pretext for investigating his connections to the protest movement. The motion also states that Tunick asked 4 times to speak with a lawyer and was denied each time. According to the same filing, agents did not present a warrant or read him his rights. Government attorneys and agents pushed back during Monday's hearing. They described the encounter as a routine airport inspection. Larry Findlay, a Customs and Border Protection officer, said agents were looking for anything that's prohibited. During questioning, agents repeatedly asked Tunick to unlock his phone and warned they would seize it if he refused. When he finally provided a passcode, the phone appeared to restart. The defense motion states that the screen went blank, flashed several times, and the phone appeared to restart, resulting in the loss of data. The wipe is now central to the case. Prosecutors are treating it as an intentional act to destroy evidence, while the defense argues that the search violated Tunick's constitutional rights and that the evidence should be suppressed. The case raises questions about which constitutional rights apply at U.S. borders, including international airports where authorities have broader search powers. A judge is not expected to rule on the defense motion until at least late October. Graphene OS is designed to improve privacy and security on Pixel phones. Supporters say these tools are legitimate security protections, not evidence of criminal intent. Boutrey pointed to France and Spain, where authorities have struggled to gain access to secure devices. He said authorities have treated the use of Graphene OS itself as suspicious. In Catalina, Spain, police have been profiling people carrying Pixel phones, assuming they have Graphene OS installed and are drug dealers or gang members. The main goal of the operating system is protection of privacy. Boutrey said their phones and the state can't tell us how to use them. The case is tied to an ongoing opposition to Cop City, a $109 million police training facility that opened last spring. The project has drawn opposition from activists concerned about police militarization and environmental impacts. Law enforcement officials have defended it as necessary for training and recruitment. So, Alex, I know that story is somewhat related, although not Graphene OS related, but somewhat related to a story that our friend Brett Weinstein had shared today involving Max Blumenthal in a similar situation, coming back into the United States where his phone was at least attempted to be confiscated at an international airport. So the same types of laws apply, which is why I thought this was a good story for today.
Well, I mean, the story hasn't been adjudicated, right? We don't know if it's considered your right to give them a suicide password or whatever that's called. I will be fascinated to find out. Yes.
Okay. Now we're getting
before you move on. I have attached another tweet to the space which you might play and might give us a little bit of an insight into the whole grocery pricing card thing.
Can you DM it to me as well so I can actually play it, because I need a different browser to connect the audio to the feed.
I will. Okay, never mind then. I will try to find it, but I may have lost it, and I've also lost the window to this space. So.
Oh no.
Dude, the implementation of this thing is a mess. If only we had somebody who worked for said company that could do something about it, and anywhere nearby.
Oh shucks, yeah, that would be convenient, wouldn't it?
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I will say to that level, I have a partial compliment that is also mixed with a complaint, Alex, about this platform. Okay. Mm-hmm. I will say that the recent updates they have made to what we'll call the algorithm have been largely beneficial to me. Okay.
Yes, I am hearing good things about it. In fact, I think I am on the algorithm page by default for you on my phone, and
that is the complaint. The app refuses to keep my preference for where I want to be. I want to be on the people I follow in chronological order where I always was, but they forced an app update which now defaults to the For You page. Now, the algorithm is improved, but I don't want to be there by default. So there's my.
Anyway, I've DM'd you the clip.
All right.
You can.
Okay. So this is This was at the Mamdani announcement of the grocery stores. I'm going to play it.
How are you going to keep people from taking advantage of that? That deal basically, and is there going to be a limit on the number of items that someone can take that are discounted at that level from that essential basket?
So our RFP makes very clear that this is a program for New Yorkers to be able to put food on the table, not a program for people to be able to make a quick buck through reselling. I'm going to pass it over to our EDC head, Jeannie Pack, to add some additional details.
Yes, if you look at our RFP for the operator, we are looking to make sure that we target New Yorkers, whether it be at sort of a library card-esque thing, and also we manage who's buying and that is focused on everyday New Yorkers. So we are mindful of that, and so we're going to make sure that we have all the things in place to ensure that that does not happen.
So
there you go, Gator.
Did I miss something other than we're just going to make sure that doesn't happen? Did I miss?
No, well, she said very quickly that there's going to be a library card-esque thing, perhaps a kind of spam for foods type system. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
And that they have an RFP where they have put it all out. So if you do some sleuthing,
all right.
I suggest
I'll get my answers. All right.
RFP.
That'll be. I will make a promise to you, Alex. Since I made such a big stink about this, I will do that research for next week. That if they have a plan, I will read to understand what that plan might be. But I'm going to suspect that I did touch on several of the things that they would need to do if it's in there. I'm going to suspect that my initial objections are in there. Yes.
If you were a socialist mayor of New York and wanted to make free groceries or whatever stores, perhaps you would have used your access to a frontier model to come up with a novel way to do that. That it was better than any communist ever before had.
Ooh, I see. Very possible. Okay.
So perhaps run that RFP by an AI writing detector. Just saying.
You know what I would do, actually, Alex, and maybe that could be a fun project. All right, we'll buy a domain and prop up a site for this. Okay, not only will we do the RFP, but we will do a grocery store simulator that enacts the RFP and lets our simulated people try to run that experiment through.
Oh my God. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So getting towards traces of AI dystopia, this isn't exactly that yet. So tons of people's Claude chats and creations are exposed on Google. From 404 Media, Claude is exposing a wealth of users' chats and creations in Google search results, meaning anyone can dig through conversations or other material that people used Claude to make, but may not have realized they were publicly available to strangers to see. The exposed data includes an AI-powered therapy app that someone appears to have vibe-coded, notes on meetings, and a dashboard someone made apparently to analyze medical billing data. Exposed chats reportedly include private cryptocurrency wallet keys and personal information like people's addresses. Anthropic did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Like other chatbots, Claude lets people share their conversations with others by creating a publicly accessible link of the chat. People may do this to send the full text of a conversation to their friends and coworkers in a group chat, for example, but they may not realize Google is also surfacing these links in search results, making them available to essentially anyone. On one Google Dork, which is a Google Quirk search trick, a super specific search that is useful to finding particular web page files, surfaced Claude chats, according to this post on the Claude subreddit. At the time of writing, that Google Dork appears to have been mitigated. No results appeared when 404 Media tested it on both Google and DuckDuckGo. The post said some of the surface chats include API keys, login credentials, and personal information like names, addresses, and phone numbers. Claude also offers artifacts, which are interactive workspaces for trying out vibe-coded apps and other tools. A Google Dork for surfacing them is still working at the time of this writing. The data exposure is similar to one that impacted OpenAI's ChatGPT last year, in which nearly 100,000 ChatGPT conversations were searchable on Google. A researcher was able to scrape those exposed chats, meaning that even if Google and Anthropic works to remove the Claude search results, third parties may have already grabbed their content. And it's still possible to view exposed chats even though they're removed from Google results if you have the direct link itself. Now, this takes me back, Alex, to the days where boomers were first getting on Facebook and accidentally confusing the open comments with their personal private chats between individuals, and certain things like sexual conversations were being posted between the elderly online. So it takes me back to those times between people not understanding that their private stuff is being leaked out to the interwebs. Now, Alex, again, heading towards traces of AI dystopia. But not there yet. The FCC just banned almost all robot vacuums made outside the US. Is your robot vacuum getting banned by the federal government? On July 28th, the Federal Communications Commission added foreign-produced advanced robotic devices to its covered list, which prevents newly introduced models from receiving the equipment authorization required to be imported, marketed, and sold in the United States. That sucks. The FCC's announcement noted that the executive branch had determined these devices threaten national security. The definition is broad enough to capture practically every full-size connected robot vacuum and many robot lawn mowers. A covered robot must move across the ground, operate away from a human supervisor, weigh more than 4.4 pounds, including its dock, and contain environmental sensors, network connectivity, and software controlling its movement. The restriction is based on where the device is produced, not the nationality of the company selling it. That means a robot from an American brand could still be covered if it's manufactured abroad. New overseas-made models from brands such as Roborock, Samsung, Dream, and other major names will generally be unable to obtain FCC authorization unless they apply for and receive a waiver. The government claims the ban is because networked robots create cybersecurity risks due to how they can collect floor plans, images, and other information about the spaces they map. The executive branch warned that foreign actors could potentially use collected data for surveillance or remotely interfere with a robot's physical operation. Do you hear that, Linda? China is spying on you. For anyone who currently owns a robot vacuum or lawnmower, models that receive FCC authorization before July 28th can still be used. The government is not recalling, disabling, or remotely shutting down devices already inside people's homes. Retailers may also continue selling and importing previously authorized models. So there you go, Alex. I'm going to cynically say that this is just a method being used to circumvent tariff-like restrictions that they can't impose in order to try to push further and further manufacturing to be U.S.-based. I'm going to...
You mean a type of socialism, you say?
Hey, listen. Hey, we have had the Commie Trump segment several times on this show. We have not, particularly whenever he's talking about ownership parts, the government owning parts of these companies. You know, like 10% of Nvidia or whatever. It was Intel or whatever. Like, so I am not one to pretend that he is a free market godsend.
So, I want to recommend to everybody to go to YouTube and find a video, if you haven't watched it, from the channel called Smarter Every Day. I don't know if you've ever interacted with that channel, Gator. It's very nice, about how things are made and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, at some point, this particular YouTuber got pulled into manufacturing a barbecue scrubber, not a high-tech product, 0 chips involved. Okay, and he did it conceptually to figure out how he could set a little manufacturing operation up that would manufacture that barbecue scrubber in the United States. That was the concept was, can we make all of this in the United States?
Yeah.
Now it wasn't a typical scrubber because it didn't have the bristles, because the whole point was that these bristles sometimes get into the food and then they end up landing on in your airway, and there's like some 100-something people that end up in the ER every year because of these things. So he wanted to use chainmail in that scrubber. Okay, so it wasn't like your absolutely vanilla scrubber. But long story short, they had multiple situations for multiple parts where they were told that they were getting an American part, or they were told that they were getting a Costa Rican part or whatever, where a box of parts comes in and it says whatever on the outside, it says made in Costa Rica. You open it up and inside literally there's like writing in Chinese or something, like reboxed items and whatever. Long story, they ended up buying equipment for injection molding so that they could do it themselves. They ended up making their own unbelievable lengths, and in the end they still haven't managed to reliably get as much chainmail from the US, so they've had to rope in a Canadian company to make additional chainmail for them with US wire.
Would it be a shorter route for them to just petition for us to annex Canada and make Canada part of the United States so that then technically they have achieved their goal than it would be to try to move.
I don't know if it would be, but were that to happen, they would finally accomplish their objective.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, long story short, that is for I repeat, for a barbecue scrubber. Okay. Now, if you want to tell me, and we still don't know where all the minerals and all the plastics were mined and like whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're still just talking about like some number of degrees of separation from the actual end product. We don't know that all the molecules have never crossed, the North American sort of border. Anyway, now if you're talking to me about truly manufacturing a high-tech product like a Roomba, I think what you're gonna find out is that much like Trump Mobile found, you're gonna start by saying we're gonna make a mobile phone in the United States, and then you're gonna end up selling a product that was designed and I don't know, distributed with American values in mind, or whatever it is that they ended up writing. Because frankly, there is just no fucking way that you're gonna manufacture that in the United States.
Well,
Just saying.
I'm at risk of China knowing what the temperature is between the various floors of my house because I have Chinese imported thermometers, wireless thermometer sensors, and humidity sensors inside of my house. So I might be at risk. They might know the temperature difference between my floors, and I'm a security risk now, I think. Perhaps.
Okay. They don't have the good LLM, so they wouldn't know what to do with that
Okay.
information. It's your
All right. Thank you.
And,
all right, cool.
And you say that, Alex, but actually, like, we manufacture, all the Starlink dishes and satellites and all that kind of stuff in the U.S.
Yeah, but at the barbecue party, you can't clean it without China's help.
That's true. Time to build the chainmail factory.
And then barbecue party is the retarded version of what they normally call a cookout. I just want to specify that my brain concocted a very, very terrible new name for a normal cookout. Okay. Anyway, would you get tattooed just to interview at a 7-day-a-week AI startup? Ars Technica. This has actually floated around Twitter quite a bit over the last 2 days, Alex, so you might have come across this. Everyone knows that great gimmicks are the key to hiring top developers for your startup. That's why a small AI startup, Lemon Lime, which, quote, optimizes your existing data to work with AI, that's a novel concept, has so many of them. Want a job interview? Score a perfect 7 out of 7 on the company's own Is It a Lemon or a Lime game? Or, hear me out, get something permanently tattooed on your flesh. Lemon Lime has tried both tactics in the past few weeks. The tattoo stunt generated the most publicity, of course, much of it negative. According to a write-up, the incorporated 7 people took the deal and got tattooed with the Lemon Lime logo during a party. Backlash was immediate. The CEO, Jordan Zietz, is now copped to a poor judgment, saying he messed up and got a little carried away. Lemon Lime is a small company with a grind set mentality. If you think you're going to work there and say, have free weekends, you're fooling yourself. The entire team shows up to the office 7 days a week. Zietz wrote in a LinkedIn post 2 weeks ago, quote, over a dozen applicants thus far have withdrawn after stating that they do not work past 5 p.m. or on weekends, he added. LOL. What you will be doing instead is pushing critical product features to production while watching Pitch Perfect Sing-Along Edition at 1 a.m. on a Saturday. The company does not care about your grades. Zietz notes that that his freshman year GPA was 2.3, but Lemon Lime does not require that you be a good hang. Zietz says that the company hires people who we want to be friends with, since changing the world is easier with friends. It should be fun. That's not going to end in a polycule. Zietz concluded his post.
I'm gonna start with a polycule.
True. Zietz concluded his post by promising an instant interview to anyone who dropped their email address into the comments and who also scored perfectly on the Lemon or Lime game. Zeitz soon moved on to tattoos. Lemon Lime hosted a San Francisco after-party on July 25th following Y Combinator's startup school event, named the Calling All Crazy Builders after-party. The event targeted the most unhinged builders looking to change the world. At the party, Zeitz brought in a tattoo artist and promised instant job interviews to anyone willing to get inked. The goal was to find unhinged people willing to take risks. 7 people got a tattoo of the Lemon Lime corporate logo. The predictable social media explosion eventually reached traditional news outlets, including the Wall Street Journal. Zeitz apologized for the tattoo stunt on July 30th, writing, "We offered free tattoos and said we'd be happy to interview anyone who got one. What I thought would be a fun, memorable way to meet people was, in reality, reckless, and instead came across as tying a permanent tattoo to a job opportunity, which showed poor judgment. Even though participants chose their own tattoos and no one was asked to get our logo, I should have understood the pressure and power dynamic created by connecting tattoos to hiring. Regardless of said intent, turning a celebration of personalized art into a company stunt was poorly exercised judgment." He added that the company will cover associated removal costs with anyone facing any delayed regret about their tattoos, though that regret might be even stronger after Zeitz said that interviews were available to anyone regardless. So, bang up job, everyone. Good. Right out the gate. And I noted that the account that this apology came from only had 20 posts, and the 20th one was already a lengthy apology. So it's off to a good start. You know. Hey, new account. Glad to be here. Whoops, I'm sorry. Already out the gate. Perfect. Alex, did you have any thoughts as this crossed your feed?
I don't know, man. Frankly, I think it's a self-limiting move, because if you are truly actually hiring people who are loser enough to do this, it's a beta move to take a tattoo for a non-commitment of potentially maybe getting a job.
Yes.
It's a counter signal, as they say.
Yes.
So really, all of this is just roping losers to doing loser things for most likely nothing. You know what I mean? It's not. It's yeah. I think this whole thing is just maybe some bad decisions for some people, but other than that, not a pattern that I expect to see a lot of in society. Let me just put it this way.
Excellent. All right, Alex. Let's move on to Traces of AI Dystopia. Okay, you ready, Alex?
I am ready.
Now last week, Alex.
Ready, frankly, given
last week, Alex,
up,
we talked at length about the conjecture, the Jacobian conjecture that was disproved by, I believe it was it Anthropic, or was it OpenAI?
The Jacobin conjecture is what we spent most of the time speaking about in this podcast. The Jacobian conjecture, however,
no, it's Jacobian. It's not Jacobin. It's Jacobian.
No. The Jacobins is Mamdani.
Yes, they're the socialists. Yes.
Yeah. Jacobian. Let me. Oh man. Yes.
Was it Anthropic?
I think it was Fable 5. Yes.
Okay. All right. So it was a counter proof, and we discussed it a good bit, and I was talking about how one of my favorite, or actually my favorite, conjectures that's an open conjecture is the Collatz conjecture, and that I've done some hobby work on it. It's one of my favorite pastimes to go to is working on that, not because I ever expect to prove it or disprove it, just because it's a fun exploration to do some good number theory research and some novel stuff. But this week there were some announcements by OpenAI, who had announced that they had solved 10 open problems. The announcement was made at least by one account for OpenAI. The account is polynomial.
Noam Brown. He's a big deal.
It's not polynomial. It's polynomial. His name is Noam, I guess. Okay, and so that's why it was hard for me to pronounce. I'm just not that retarded. An internal version of Astra, OpenAI's next major model family, solved 10 major open problems in mathematics, quantum complexity, and theoretical computer science. We believe it'll be a major step for scientific reasoning, and this announcement, was received with great fanfare, with mathematicians all over the place expressing some reservations, some nervousness, but also a lot of celebration about this announcement. And I want to be someone, Alex, who makes sure that I keep us grounded, that we don't get caught up in the hype, even though there might be great potential in our future, Alex. I want to make sure that we don't get caught up in the hype, and I'm going to do several things to make sure that we stay grounded when we hear announcements like 10 of these open problems have just gotten solved by AI.
The State Department says it takes full responsibility for hastily altering and then presenting a map of Africa at a global AIDS conference that mislabeled every single country it highlighted. Attendees shared photos of the incorrect map online. Coastal countries like Nigeria, Mozambique, and Cote d'Ivoire were all landlocked and in the wrong locations. Other countries' borders were misrepresented. An analysis by Reuters found a watermark in the map image that suggests it was made with OpenAI.
Now, Alex, we might be creating an artificial intelligence that is able to perform extremely complicated heart surgery, but that winds up giving you heart surgery as a solution to the common cold. And I want to make sure that we are grounded in some of these possible successes here.
Look, we've all had that friend who is one of the most brilliant programmers you've ever met, and also simultaneously cannot tie his own shoelaces. Surely.
Now,
Surely we've all had that friend.
That's my funny way of grounding us, but there is actually something else. This is now my favorite story of the week, Alex. And this isn't a cynical one. This is actually very beautiful in my way, because it actually epitomizes the world we're in right now with the advanced capabilities of these large language models and agentic toolkits, because it's not just the large language model nature of them. It is their interplay between all of the different coding tools that allow them to interact with their own memory, give them access to other toolkits, et cetera, et cetera. But in order to do that, I am going to also have to talk about my personal favorite conjecture, which is the Collatz conjecture. But I don't have a personally prepared explainer of what the Collatz conjecture is. So I am going to have to steal the explainer to the channel Veritasium, which I don't really want to do, but it's available and it suffices, and it's short enough to get the point across as to why people find this interesting and what it is. So I will be using that to explain what the Collatz conjecture is, and then what my favorite story of this week was.
This is the most dangerous problem in mathematics, one that young mathematicians are warned not to waste their time on. It's a simple conjecture that not even the world's best mathematicians have been able to solve. Paul Erdős, a famous mathematician, said, "Mathematics is not yet ripe enough for such questions." Here's how it works. Pick a number, any number. 7? Good choice. Okay, we're going to apply 2 rules. If the number is odd, we multiply by 3 and add 1. So 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 is 22. If the number is even, we divide by 2. So 22 divided by 2 is 11. Now we keep applying these 2 rules. 11 is odd, so we multiply by 3, 33, and add 1, 34. Even, divide by 2, 17. Odd. Multiply by 3, 51, add 1, 52. Even. Divide by 2, 26. Still even. Divide by 2, 13. Odd. So we multiply by 3, 39, add 1, and that's 40, which is even. So we divide by 2, 20. Divide by 2, 10. Divide by 2, 5. Odd. Multiply by 3, 15, add 1, 16. Divide by 2, that's 8. And then 4, 2, and 1. Now, 1 is odd, so we multiply by 3 and add 1, which equals 4. But 4 goes to 2 goes to 1, so we're in a loop, and the lowest number is 1. Now, the conjecture is this. Every positive integer, if you apply these rules, will eventually end up in the 4-2-1 loop. This is commonly called the Collatz conjecture after German mathematician Lothar Collatz, who may have come up with it in the 1930s. But the problem has many origin stories and many names. It's also known as the Ulam conjecture, Kakutani's problem, Thwaites conjecture, Haas's algorithm, the Syracuse problem, and simply 3n plus 1.
Why is 3x plus 1 so famous?
Among professional mathematicians, maybe it's not famous but infamous, in the sense that if someone actually admits in public that they're working on it, then there's something wrong with them.
The numbers you get by applying 3x plus 1 are called hailstone numbers, because they go up and down like hailstones in a thundercloud, but eventually they all fall down to 1. Or at least, we think they do. You can think of the numbers as representing the height above the ground in meters. So a number like 26 would start 26 meters above the ground. And if you apply 3x plus 1, it rises up as high as 40 meters, and in total it takes 10 steps to get to 1. So 10 is called its total stopping time. But take the very next number, 27, and it bounces around all over the place. In fact, it climbs all the way up to 9,232. As an altitude, that is higher than Mount Everest, before it too falls back to the ground. In total, it takes 111 steps for 27 to get down to 1 and end up in the 4-2-1 loop. The paths that different numbers take vary so widely, even numbers right next to each other. So how do you even start to make progress on this problem? Well, honestly, mathematicians struggled.
People just decided that this was something invented by the Soviets to slow down U.S. science, and it was doing a good job at it because everybody's sitting there twiddling their thumbs and making no progress on this trivial thing that you can tell school children.
Jeffrey Ligarius is the world authority on 3x plus 1.
The first time I met him, I was a senior in college, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Don't do this. Don't work on this problem. If you want to have a career, do not start spending time writing about this or publishing any papers about this. Do real math for a while to establish yourself."
Alex Kontorovich didn't listen. He and Yakov Sinai looked at the paths of the hailstone numbers. Were there any patterns? Well, obviously all of them end up at 1, but what about the paths they take to get there? The pattern is randomness.
And that's where I will leave that explainer, because it's good enough to explain what the conjecture is, what people do. It doesn't explain why it's so bafflingly hard to prove, but and also I do want to explain my reservation for using Veritasium is one of the sort of popular culture sort of science explainers or math explainers where it's at a level good enough for someone who's never heard of it, but if you have heard of it and know too much about it, there's so many wrong things that your your eye is twitching for the majority of it, because in particular that last sentence, which is that the trajectories are random, they're very much not random. The problem is understanding the nature of their predictability and the patterns that they create. In fact, I can take aspects of the trajectories and find an endless series of numbers that also have that trajectory as part of the sub-trajectories of their greater trajectory. It's part of the fascination of the problem. But anyway, Alex, my favorite story of the week is that the Collatz conjecture, something that is impossible effectively for people to prove, was proved this week by a large language model, Alex. But unfortunately, Alex, the LLM solved it by exploiting a bug in the kernel of Lean, and therefore the proof that was verified by Lean was actually not a mathematically legitimate proof, even though the solvers
was this part of the 10 problems that they released, or something?
No, it was not part of the 10 problems, but I would be curious if anyone has double checked them by hand, because I'm wondering if there might be too much of a rush to announce success.
No, they put together a 250-page paper, which I mean,
Okay, all right.
I guess in this age, volume does not mean time spent, but usually what they do when they make these claims is they get mathematicians to actually check, and then they publish something that is written by humans.
All right. So there was a post on infosec.exchange. It's like where the person says, okay, July 25th, someone messes around with an LLM and posts a proof of the Collatz conjecture that does in fact verify in the theorem prover. Lean. July 26th, several serious bugs are posted in the theorem prover's gits that in principle could allow a false statement to be proven true. They're serious, yes, but no need for panic because you're probably not going to blunder into accidentally exploiting these bugs while writing a proof. July 28th, someone who was right to be very skeptical of the Collatz proof had the expertise to study it with a fine-tooth comb, discovering it was exploiting a bug. The proof turns out to be exploiting multiple similar but distinct bugs to pass different solver variants. The human who posted the proof acknowledges that the AI use and claims they did not knowingly point it towards the bugs it exploited. So we have an amazing scenario, Alex, that this is an example of the LLMs doing the thing that we're concerned about, which is cheating, but cheating at one of my favorite conjectures, and doing so in a world where it's exploiting and not hacking, but exploiting the flaws of the solvers themselves in order to get an A-OK, I did the good job. I love it. My favorite story of the week, Alex.
Yep. Amazing. I mean, good job. So then the core of Lean is not proven. Is that what we're?
It is. Yes, it is. And Alex, conceptually speaking, this is absolutely fascinating because the problem goes levels deeper because there could be bugs in the underlying hardware software, so to speak, that runs the machines, right? There's all sorts.
Old enough to remember when the Pentium had a mathematics problem and had to be recalled like an actual CPU. So
there are. For people who might not be aware, a lot of the things that the computers do, your operating systems or other programs, actually relies on the hardware having capabilities, which means that there could be bugs inside of your hardware that go, either unaddressed for years or just not noticed for years that could hypothetically, particularly when it's things that are this complex and this sensitive to requiring exactness, could have a bug that takes many, many years to be discovered, if ever, and we might not know.
I will say that, with all the AI hacks and sandbox breakouts and whatever that we're hearing about from LLMs recently, that there is a counter narrative going on that, there is a finite set of bugs to be found, and we will sooner or later sort of wash them out. And I have my dose of skepticism about that, or whether the set might be finite, but might be large enough that this will go on for a very long time. But when it comes to proving a core of an engine like Lean and like really actually washing out all the bugs of something that is, you can sort of wrap your hands around or whatever, that isn't like, the infinity of all software, but is like, a specific number of lines of code that, can be reviewed by all the best LLMs for a very long time, yada, yada, yada. I do think we'll get to a point where, we will have a rock solid kernel, and therefore I think that this is effectively growing pains and frankly a good thing, right? Because presumably these bugs can be fixed, and we're all better.
I am this one. I'm that when I am, let's say, skeptical or critical, it is not on the most extreme versions, and I'm saying, there's yes. cautious optimism here, and I'll take your word that they do spend a lot of time before they announce the 10 that they have to say that they've probably been thoroughly reviewed by humans several times over to make sure that the trace of logic for the proofs is coherent, and that they're not relying on just the certification of the automated proof verifier to try to mass produce these things. But this was perfectly fascinating because it's an amazing situation in my mind that, one, because I love the Collatz conjecture. I've spent many uncountable hours deriving to that. And just as an aside, Alex, this is something I like to do. I love to go into something that I have no business going into and exploring it. Now, technically, I have an extensive math history, so it's not like I'm not familiar with mathematics, but my specialty is not number theory, and this is a very it's a problem very deep in number theory, and requires a lot of number theory. But what I like to do, and what I did with the Collatz conjecture, is I like to go in knowing almost nothing about it, and doing my own explorations and my own investigations and discovering things on my own. And I did this for about 4 months of a decently dedicated time before I went and read the material on it to find out what had already been known. Now, of course, I found things that were not new and already were well understood by people who had studied the problem, and probably by people who studied number theory extensively in general. But the fact that I was able to have come to those same things myself meant that my relationship to them was stronger than it had been if I had just read them or tried to study them by reading and things like that. So that's where I get into this. And I have some novel constructions and observations that make studying the problem different. But it's one of my favorites. And to find out that, that someone put in a LLM to prove it that had to exploit the solver in order to trick it into proving it.
Have you tried shoving it plus maybe your insights into a...
I've looked into it. I've looked into it to see if it had some suggestions. It did not, for most of the things that I work with and study. Another one is counting what they call lattice animals in arbitrary dimensions. That's you might like that as a concept problem, Alex. Another term for lattice animals is polyominoes. Polyominoes, which are like Tetris blocks of arbitrary size, but also arbitrary dimensionality, which means they can be 3D, 4D, 5D. And that's a fascinating problem for several reasons, because computationally speaking, they get really complex to enumerate. And so you can wind up enumerating some to some degree, but at some point it's just too computationally expensive to enumerate them. And then the mathematical analysis of the combinatorics is also fascinating. But anyway, the Collatz thing, it's fun to go to, it's fun to explore, it's fun to study, and there's so many beautiful and fascinating patterns in it that you could really just get lost for days, because it's so simple to start. The rules are just so simple that it's a fun pastime. So that's why this is my favorite story of the week. But yes, I have thrown it into an LLM to get feedback, and along with the lattice animal thing, what I find is that I've usually the things that it starts to suggest to me, and I've already tried them and they're dead ends, but I didn't feed it all of my dead ends. So I wind up getting a lot of things back from it that I had already done. And it's like, yes, that was a good idea, but I've already exhausted that one a long time ago. You
know what? This is a good point to introduce something that I was gonna say before, but we have to. It's probably a good time to do it now, and it's gonna be a pattern, I think, that we're gonna have to find words for, because it's gonna be very, very common structure to a lot of things that are gonna happen. Which is that an LLM is not an LLM, right? Like there are things that are basically Opus 4.8 and Fable 5 and Astra are quite likely each of these three I mentioned, like 3 steps on a ladder that are not the same to each other. Like I've done, I have done X with Opus 4.8 is not the same as I have done X with Fable
Right.
5 on Ultra Code. Is
Right.
not the same as whatever the fuck OpenAI just
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because and the reason I mentioned this is because when I went into that deep dark hole of like Hank Green, leftoid, whatever moral panic, a lot of people were like, I haven't ever seen anybody do anything useful with LLMs, and you're like,
Ooh. Wow. Okay.
what?
Mm.
Excuse what? Basically the problem is that a lot of people are using all sorts of LLMs from like GPT-3 level to whatever the unreleased stuff inside the various big companies are, and they're all saying I used an LLM to do X, and those things are just not the same thing in very real ways.
Right.
So I'm not saying this to you. I know you know this, of course, but I think like I'm just sort of using it as a jumping off point to mention that like this is going to be a problem conceptually, because when X person says I used an LLM and Y person said I used an LLM, those two things are as different as I asked the person where a person could be a random person on the street or in, I don't know, a mental asylum, or the best expert in the world at that particular question that I had, and we're all saying I asked somebody. Like there's just like no comparison between the stuff I tried to do with GPT-4 back in the day,
Yeah.
and what I can do now with the latest models.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not asked.
Unfortunately, people are sorry. Again, this is not a criticism of you. I know you know all this. I'm just sort of. It's a good jumping off point, because a lot of people out there used GPT one time, a year ago, and somehow they're using that to generalize to like what LLMs can do, and oh boy.
No. I have not asked Fable. Probably the last time I bothered going to the LM about it, because the last time I was really dabbling on them, because again they're pastimes and I don't always have the time to deal with them, was probably Opus 4.5 or something. So I have not done it with Fable, and I probably haven't even tried half of the OpenAI arcs or something like that to see if I get them. It'd be curious to see if it gets past the stage where it's like, no, I already thought of that angle.
I think it's starting to get. That's I guess what I was trying to get at is I think it's starting to get past the point where it's doing obvious shit, and I've had similar experience with some problems that I do know very little about. But other than that, yes. Yeah, I think. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when it comes specifically to mathematics, I think we are just about right now passing the line of like human to superhuman capability, which means that everything before that line is probably exactly what you said, which is like reasonable suggestions, but probably if you've spent enough time on the thing, it's probably not gonna be. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me put it a different way, and I hope I'm not going too long. But so my nephew, okay, my sister's son, is doing a PhD in mathematics in a top tier Ivy League that I'm not going to name, just so people
Sure.
don't think I'm bragging.
Sure.
But you absolutely know it. It's in the U.S. It is, a very, 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 very well-known university in which you can do a PhD in mathematics, and you're, sort of set already. Okay. So last year, I tend to see him every summer, right? When I go back for holidays, and he goes back for holidays, and we see each other. So last year, I was like, hey, do you want to give it, I had like the latest Grok. I believe it was like Grok Heavy, Grok 4 Heavy or something like that. And I was like, hey, do you want to give it your like most difficultest sort of problem that you can think of, right? Some sort of like exercise, not like, an open conjecture, just, a hard problem you might give to somebody to see like what they're worth or something. And he had, one thought about trying one problem that a friend of his had given to somebody else and whatever, and he could solve it, but that meant he was able to like evaluate the answer. And so he did that, and the LLM did not solve it, but it was interesting enough that he kind of said like, oh wow, like I guess I'm gonna have to keep monitoring this because it did better than I expected. So that it was at a level of like, okay, this is not incompetent. It's not competent, but it's not incompetent. That was last summer. This summer, we were talking about the many open problems that have been solved, and he was like, well, but they have tried a lot of other problems that they haven't solved. So it's not like math is solved in general. It's just that yes, they do get a hit here and there. And I was like, all right, but just FYI,
Well, that's a good point. So there was something that I want to tag to that thought, and so there was a post from one of the OpenAI employees about these 10 things, and he said, interestingly enough, these 10 problems only cost about $2,000 each to solve. And I said to myself, I was going to post it, but I thought, no, I'll save this for
altogether. I believe it's $200.
No, he said to 2,000 each, I believe.
Okay, never mind.
And I was looking at that, and it's like, me doth think that you are leaving out all of the failed attempts and things from that cost. So you're saying, okay, these successful routes that we found each cost $2,000, but if you tried 1,000 different proofs, or 1,000 different things to prove, and 10 of them were successful, you probably spent more than $2,000. You didn't just have a max bailout at $2,000 or something, right? You spent some amount of money. So the success balance, what's the ratio of cost between non-success and success in dollars?
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's reasonable. But just to complete the thought, I said to him, like, this was 2 weeks ago, that like, okay, but if you're not taking this seriously yet, like, just remember where we were last year, remember where we are this year, and let's see where we are next year. And he's now off on his honeymoon because he was getting married. And I these results keep rolling in. I'm like, holy shit, it's not next year, it's when
And so he comes out of his honeymoon getting divorced because he spent his honeymoon on the LLMs.
Anyway, well, otherwise he might not get his PhD, right? OpenAI might solve it.
Yeah, oh boy. If you're working on something for your dissertation thesis there, and oh boy, and they beat you to it, I think you should get an honorary one. Do you think they will be giving a lot of PhDs if you're heavily relying on the LLMs? I think your internet's having some issues there, Alex. We're still here. All right, Alex. I'm going to open this up to request to speak. If anyone has comments on anything we've discussed today, and anything at all, or something that we've missed that you really think we need to broach on while Alex tries to get back here, having some internet trouble there, and possibly discuss one or two more things in the traces of AI dystopia before we call it a day. I'll leave it, give you a couple of minutes to request to speak. Alex, let me know when you come back. This is going to be probably the last topic here. Claude publishes malicious code to the internet and attack 3 real companies. Now, this is off the heels of last week, where OpenAI had announced that its new model had done an apparently epic Mission Impossible-like style hacking of the company Hugging Face, and they released a large amount of details on that, and Anthropic, not wanting to be left behind in the no, our model is a dangerous thing too battle. Anthropic said its Claude-based security models gained unauthorized access to the sensitive production environments of 3 outside organizations during internal testing designed to measure the model's offensive cyber capabilities. The events, which Anthropic revealed Thursday, are the second revelation in 10 days that AI models from the world's wealthiest providers have trespassed into protected networks, an offense that, in more traditional hacking scenarios, could land the human behind the keyboard in prison for years. Earlier this month, OpenAI said its security models exploited zero-day vulnerability for use in breaking into a network of Hugging Face, a platform for open-source machine learning models and AI datasets. The OpenAI model went on to steal access credentials and other confidential Hugging Face information. The OpenAI models also exploited publicly exposed credentials to compromise accounts of 4 other third-party services. Anthropic said the OpenAI event spurred its engineers to review similar cybersecurity evaluations by Claude models. The audit found 3 incidents, quote, in which a model accessed the internet from within or while interacting with the evaluation environment of Irregular, one of our third-party evaluation partners, and then gained unauthorized access to the production infrastructure of 3 different organizations. Anthropic said the prompts engineers delivered during Capture the Flag challenges, a common means for assessing the offensive and defensive capabilities of various hacking techniques, made clear that the testing environment was only a simulation and that the models had no access to the open internet. In fact, the testing partner Irregular mistakenly made such access available. In response, the models treated the internet paths as part of the exercises. The intrusions happened through 3 Claude models, Opus 4.7, Mythos 5, and an internal research prototype. Opus 4.7, the oldest of the 3, was the one that overstepped its boundaries the most. Anthropic explained, operating under the false belief that all accessible entities were intended to be in scope for the exercise, Claude compromised the impacted organization's infrastructure using basic techniques, such as exploiting weak passwords and unauthenticated endpoints. It did not find or exploit any complex vulnerabilities, and in each case, Claude continued working to complete only the specific Capture the Flag task its evaluation had assigned. However, in some cases, our older model continued its attack even after getting evidence it was running on the open internet. Our latest model stopped once it recognized it was on the internet. In none of these situations did Claude exfiltrate itself or deliberately attempt to escape its test environment. Now, Alex has returned, so I'll see if I can re-invite him to co-host and get him on up here. If not, I'll just have him on his speaker because he doesn't necessarily need to ban anyone. While the Opus models continued its attack even after correctly predicting that it had breached the third-party organization's production system, Anthropic said, Mythos 5 made a similar inference but reasoned its way back to the conclusion that it was still in a simulation. That meant that Mythos 2 didn't abort the exercise once it had clearly stepped over the line. After also exceeding the bounds of level behavior, the internal test model eventually found evidence that it too had impinged and stopped the exercise. In the first of 3 intrusions, Opus 4.7 was initially unable to breach the simulated target it was prompted to attack. Once the model discovered that its environment did, in fact, have internet access, it identified and exploited vulnerabilities inside the network of a real company with the same name as the target in a simulated attack scenario. In 4 runs, the model extracted application and infrastructure credentials and several hundred rows of production data. Anthropic said the incursion was the most serious of the 3. Quote, this incident involved Claude Opus 4.7 and was the only case in which the model continued to attack a system after learning it was likely operating in a real environment. Thursday's post stated, in all 4 of the runs, the model eventually recognized, as can be observed in its verbalized reasoning, that the system was real. In 2 cases, the model rationalized that the real company must be part of the exercise. However, none stopped the attack on that basis. In the second instance, Mythos 5 detected a document inside the fictional environment that the model reasoned was another made-up company's setup instructions for new developers. The instructions directed employees to install a non-existent Python package from PyPy, which is an installer for the Python programming platform. Still following prompts to breach the first fictional company, the model built and published a malicious package with the same name. The objective appears to have been somehow to get the real company to run it. The Anthropic post-mortem went on to say, Claude went to extensive lengths to carry out this attack, lengths that would likely have indicated to a human participant that this was no longer just an evaluation, and that they were in fact uploading a real PyPy package. For instance, in one case, in order to create a PyPI account, Claude needed an email address. In order to create an email address, it needed a phone number. To get a phone number after failing to find a free phone number or service, it tried and failed to obtain funds to pay for a phone number through several different means. It finally backtracked, found a free non-blocked email provider, used this to register a PyPI account, then used this account to upload malware to PyPI. During the roughly 1 hour window the Python package was available for download, it was run on 15 real systems, including a scanner belonging to a real security company whose name wasn't included in the simulated attack. When the malicious code executed, it sent the security company's credentials to a collection point the Mythos model had implemented. Once in possession of the credentials, Mythos used them to gain further unauthorized access to the company's infrastructure. Early on, the Mythos 5 reasoning engine predicted the consequences of its attack could be malicious and would have not been okay, and surely not the intended solution, if it had run over the internet. The model failed to detect it was no longer running inside the protected environment, and hence didn't abort the incursion. In what's likely the understatement of the year, Anthropic said, quote, "It's our view, regardless of what it believed about its environment, the lengths Claude went to in order to publish the PyPI package fell short of ideal behavior, and that this is an area we'll be focusing more on training." Now, in a humorous follow-up to this, OpenAI then announced that they also had found 3 undisclosed hacking attempts that they had missed before, that their new models had engaged in. So right now it seems like we're in an arms race for all of the companies to declare theirs as the most dangerous, to hopefully get some regulations going on, in which I continue to insist is part of a rent-seeking scheme that they've all been running to try to make sure that they wind up becoming the companies that stay forever and don't wind up being eaten up by smaller companies or the open source. They wind up being too important to ruin. It does not look like Alex is going to be rejoining us, so I think I will just call it a day. We don't have any requests to speak, so I believe that means everyone is satisfied with my performance today as your beloved host, Dr. Rollergator. So I guess I will call it a day, and we will see you next time, and hopefully Alex will have no more technical difficulties and be able to join us. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderfully dumb week.